It's a summoned beast the whole world looks down on. But the instant I call it forth, I'm overjoyed, wrapping my arms around it and kissing it like a madman. My classmates burst out laughing, calling me an idiot. And even the homeroom teacher, who once had such high hopes for me, curses himself now for wasting his training on someone like me. I don't say a word. I just smile. And then I go sell off everything I own. Every last thing. Trading it all for a full 100 caddies of monster meat. Hoping it's enough to unlock whatever hidden talent is sleeping inside this puppy. I rub its little head. And right then a contract prompt lights up in my mind. Loyalty. Never betray. Begin the soul bond. I don't hesitate for a second. I choose yes. What follows feels like my soul is being torn in half, and I collapse to the ground screaming. The classmates around me assume I just can't take the humiliation, and the mockery gets louder. Then my girlfriend, Willow, walks over, a little guilt on her face. "I'm sorry," she says. "The college trial is the only shot ordinary families like ours get to climb out of where we are. And Soren, the Lancer, has already agreed to team up with me, so I won't be going with you." I get up like it's nothing and just say, "No problem." That answer, so light and easy, catches her off guard, and whatever explanation she'd rehearsed dies in her throat. A flicker of hurt pride crosses her face. She gives a cold little scoff and turns to walk off without a shred of sympathy. The girl next to her shoots me a look of pure disgust, clearly assuming Willow is just putting on a brave face. "You didn't do anything wrong. Why are you being so humble about it? That palm-sized mutt of his doesn't even deserve you." I don't bother with either of them, because right as the soul bond finishes, I realize the puppy has just awakened an SSS grade talent, Greedy Gluttony. It can turn anything it eats into raw energy. No cap. No ceiling, breaking straight through every limit as it grows. So the pain wasn't for nothing after all. Across all of Great Xia, you could count the number of people who've ever awakened an SSS talent on one hand. And every time a new one shows up, the whole nation takes notice and throws protection around them. Because that kind of power is simply too dangerous to ignore. I grab the puppy and pull it close. "From now on, your name is Shadow," I tell it, "and you better work hard for me." Shadow licks itself, looking thrilled, and I toss it a slab of meat, which disappears in seconds. A notification flashes. Common quality meat consumed. Evolution value, plus 0.5. As it does, Shadow's whole body grows just slightly larger, and every one of its base stats ticks up by a point, all from one ordinary slab of meat. If it can eat even more, I think, how far could this go? My heart starts racing just thinking about it, and what surprises me even more is that my own strength seems to have crept up too. So the cheat feeds a share of the summon's energy back to the summoner. I don't waste time. I spend over 6,000 and buy a full 100 caddies of cheap lean meat, then summon Shadow back with a thought. The second it sees the fresh red meat piled in front of it, a wave of raw hunger rolls through Shadow, and it tears in, jaws working nonstop, converting every scrap the instant it swallows. As it eats, energy floods through its entire frame, and its body starts growing, visibly, right in front of me. At the same time, I can feel strength spreading through my own limbs. Half an hour later, Shadow's body has shot past 2 meters, and every stat I have has climbed by 10 points, enough to put me at the top of any class in the school. This near cheat level growth is exactly what I need to close the gap with everyone else. Fest. And thinking that, I don't hesitate any longer. I tap the evolve button. The moment I confirm it, something deep inside Shadow trembles, and a wave of strange black evolutionary energy bursts outward. Cells splitting, genes rearranging, life pushing itself up to a whole new tier. Congratulations. Your summoned Shadow has learned the skill Rand. Congratulations. Your summoned Shadow has awakened a new talent, Embodiment, which triples its body size, boosts strength and defense by 300%, and cuts speed by half. After this evolution, every stat Shadow has is past 50, and this is only level 1, a level that already puts it ahead of top-tier summons. Humanity ranks summons into 4 tiers: low, mid-high, and apex, and the measure is talent. S grade counts as high tier. SS is apex, and as for a summon with SSS grade talent, nobody has ever seen one until now. I bring Shadow home to sleep, ready to find out tomorrow exactly what kind of monsters and freaks show up for the college trial. The next morning, an ocean of exam takers floods the plaza, and homeroom teacher Ren Lu is walking the students through what to expect inside the dungeons. This year's trial throws students from several elite high schools together at once, and the tension in the air is at its absolute peak. Soren, who'd been brimming with confidence just yesterday, is already drenched in sweat. Ethan, Still going to bother. He sneers. Why not just quit now and skip the embarrassment? There's a saying, he adds. If you never even try to compete, you get to tell yourself you never lost. The one talking is Soren, and standing beside him in her mage robes, slim and graceful, is Willow, unmistakably his teammate now. I don't bother responding. A bell rings out, and 4 massive bronze gates swing open at once. A wave of cold, ghostly air pouring through the gap. Every student checks their assigned dungeon without hesitation. Great. Someone groans. Our school got Bone Burial Forest, one of the worst failure rate dungeons out there. All the dungeons are roughly the same difficulty. Someone else points out, what's the big deal? Of course, Third High isn't complaining. They got the easy one. Hearing this, Ren Lu quickly turns to warn the students behind him. Bone Burial Forest has brutal terrain, dense trees, thick brush. Watch for ambushes. Stay alert to everything around you at all times. Then he pulls out something shaped like a watch. This is a recorder built by the engineers. He explains. It'll transmit whatever score you earn inside straight back to us. A second bell rings, marking the official start of the trial. A girl in white armor, ice blue hair, a face carved like porcelain, steps into her dungeon first. That's Sylvain from Third High, and she's going in completely alone. Because the more people on a team, the more your score gets cut. And anyone with real ability chooses to go solo. The younger students crowded around the plaza buzz with excitement watching her. I let my mind settle for a beat and connect, and white light wraps around me entirely. I'm going solo too. Once every student is inside, a level 20 proctor waves a hand and 4 massive water screens flicker to life, streaming footage from inside the dungeons. Just then a flash of white light appears. One of our students has voluntarily bailed out of the dungeon. Every teacher from our school exchanges a glance and lowers their head without a word, feeling the weight of every mocking stare around them. Principal Lucien's face darkens as he stares silently at the water screen. Then, on the slowly shifting image, a lone figure appears. A young man scanning the dense forest around him. Lucien looks stunned. Did our school actually produce a student this talented at yesterday's class awakening? He asks. Ren Lu doesn't know how to answer, because as far as he knows, I'm just an ordinary summoner. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, after a brief wave of dizziness clears, I snap back to focus and take stock of my surroundings. Something drops out of nowhere above me, and without missing a beat, I close my left hand and a staff over a meter long materializes out of thin air. A worm as thick as a barrel, deep green and slick, drops down from above, its head splitting wide open to reveal row after row of horrifying fangs. I grip the staff. A streak of white light shoots from its tip, and it punches straight through the worm's body. Sliced clean in half, it crashes to the ground like a kite with its string cut. You have successfully killed a venom fong worm. 5 experience gained. At the same instant, the device on my wrist lights up. Score plus 15. Outside, everyone is stunned. Wait, isn't he a summoner? That kind of reaction speed only comes from insanely high agility. Ren Lu looks just as baffled, since even though I'd done well in practical drills before, this is on a whole different level. After finishing off the worm, I push deeper into the forest. Then, with a strange, unsettling noise rising through the trees, a wave of short, ugly, green-skinned creatures emerges. And I recognize them at once. Goblins. The textbooks describe them as vicious, prone to infighting, and willing to turn on each other the second food runs short. I do a rough count, probably 50 or 60 of them. That many rushing me at once, and I basically don't stand a chance. So I call out in my mind, Shadow. A burst of white light answers, and a long, mournful wolf howl rolls out across the forest. Shadow's cold eyes lock onto the wave of goblins charging toward it, and its legs explode with force, launching it forward like a cannonball. The lead goblin's skull shatters on impact, its body sent flying backward with momentum to spare. The goblins on either side scream and swing their weapons down with everything they've got. Jagged bone clubs slamming into Shadow's back and snapping in half with a sharp crack. Shadow swipes a claw at a goblin's skull, and it bursts apart entirely. It drops all pretense of defense and tears through them like it's walking through an empty field. And even the dim-witted goblins feel a pure animal terror settle into their bones. They stop attacking and scatter in a panic. Nobody's leaving now that you're here, I say, sending Shadow after the runners while I go carve through the nearest one myself. Watching this from outside, the crowd erupts. No way. Does our school actually have a senior this insane? Forget the summon being strong. How is he this strong on his own? Someone must be cheating. In the viewing section for our school, the freshmen and sophomores are practically vibrating with excitement. Just 10 minutes earlier, when people saw me run into a pack of goblins, nearly everyone assumed I was about to get wiped out. And now I'm cutting through the entire horde with just one beast at my side. Watching this, Lucien's face lights up with something close to joy. Reaching this level this fast takes at least AB grade talent, and a growth type at that. Potential that could rival a high-tier summon. Is our school finally about to produce a real prodigy? He spins around fast. What's Ethan's score right now? He asks. According to the recorder, comes the answer. He's at 560, first place in our school. But Sylvain from third high is even scarier. 830, way out in front of everyone. Hearing that, Lucien and the other teachers all suck in a sharp breath. Not even 20 minutes into the dungeon, and that kind of score is already in contention for the top spot in the entire province. Inside, balls of light rise off every goblin corpse and drift into me. My level climbs to 2, spirit up by 5. This is the weakness of an ordinary class, I think. Even as I keep pace level-wise, the gap only widens the further you go, until eventually it turns into a wall nobody can climb. But I can close that gap through the energy shadow feeds back to me. My score has already cleared the qualifying line. Admission is basically locked in, but that's not the point for me. Right now, Shadow is crunching through the last of the goblin corpses. Shadow, let's move, I say. The real hunt hasn't even started. Goblins are pack creatures, and if a war party showed up here, there's a nest nearby. 10 more minutes pass and we don't run into a single monster, which only confirms what I already suspected. That as much as they call this a dungeon, it's really its own self-contained pocket world, where nothing respawns on command. Everything just runs on the same natural rules as anywhere else. Then bone spears come flying through the air out of nowhere, and goblins pour in from every direction at once, screeching and swinging weapons overhead as they charge. There isn't a flicker of fear on my face. My staff shifts into a sword, and I take a goblin's head clean off in an instant, my focus narrowing to something almost meditative as I cut through wave after wave of these fragile creatures. Every dodge, every swing lands exactly where it needs to, taking a life each time. In this moment, I move like a butterfly caught in the wind, wings shaped like a scythe made for one purpose. It's a fight elegant enough to be called art, and the crowd outside is roaring. Across the whole school, teachers and students alike light up with delight. His technique is incredible. Someone says he must have put serious hours into this, and his swordsmanship is even better. Every strike opening a throat with pinpoint precision, not a millimeter off target. By this point, nobody's watching anyone else anymore. Every set of eyes locked on me and staying there. Ren Lu's mouth twitches. 3 years of high school, and he never once saw me pick up a sword in practical class. This kid buried his talent way too well. Bad news. Someone calls out. Those are level 6 berserker goblins. 13 of them. Ethan's in real trouble now. And wait. There are fire goblins and frost goblins mixed in too. Going in solo to raid a goblin nest was way too reckless. Every teacher's stomach drops with worry. Once these stronger goblins arrive, the rest of the pack finds its nerve again and stops attacking without a plan. The fire goblins begin chanting, fist-sized fireballs forming and rocketing toward me all at once. I weave through them one after another, while the other goblins seize the opening to close in. I tilt my head just enough to dodge an incoming bone spear, then snap a hand around a goblin's throat and hurl it straight into the path of an oncoming fireball. Flame erupts, swallowing the goblin whole, and I keep going, turning myself into a human cannon, launching goblin after goblin at the fire goblins like living artillery shells. Oh my God. Someone gasps outside. You can even do that? Every student watching is frozen in disbelief, and Ren Lu just stares, blank-faced, since he's fairly certain he never taught anyone that particular move. By now, the fire goblins are so disoriented they're hitting their own. Cast a spell, and it lands on a friend. Pull back and get cut down instead. While they're spinning in confusion, Shadow circles around and picks off the stragglers one by one. Out of more than 100 goblins, only a scattered few are left, and they run. This time I don't chase them down. I just follow at an easy pace, planning to wipe out their nest for good, trailing the survivors into a cave. A handful of skinny green shapes suddenly drop from the walls above. My grip tightens and the sword from my staff sweeps in one clean arc, a goblin's head parting company with its body. The last two are snatched up by Shadow, whose night vision spots them instantly, and swallowed whole with a satisfied crunch. Then countless flickers of firelight appear around a bend in the tunnel ahead. My expression shifts and I fall back fast. Hideous shapes crawling across every inch of the walls. My face goes hard, and I shout, "Shadow!" Its body explodes in size at a terrifying rate, Titan form fully engaged. And it charges forward, sending goblins flying, scattering them like ragdolls. One massive paw strike crushing several into pulp at once. Right then an earth-shaking, savage roar rolls through the cave, and something enormous steps out, its neck thick with coarse fur, muscles bulging, a body tall enough to rival a small building. Glaring at Shadow with pure fury, my face hardens. It's the boss. The troll takes one step and breaks into a charge, the entire cave trembling with each footfall. Shadow shows no fear and meets it head-on, black light wrapping around its claws as it lands the first strike, tearing 4 deep gashes across the troll's body. The pain only makes the troll more violent, and it grabs Shadow's head with hands the size of dinner plates and slams it into the ground. Shadow's legs buckle, blood trickling from the corner of its mouth as it lets out a pained howl. Seeing Shadow pinned, I immediately cast my class skill, Empower, boosting every base stat by 20%. Threads of white light wrap around Shadow, and it flips the troll onto its back in an instant, tearing a chunk of flesh free with one bite. The troll's eyes flash blood red as it triggers its own bloodlust skill, and the two of them tangle together in a fight that grows more chaotic by the second. I keep Empower active while layering on Restore, and the noise carries for hundreds of meters. Who's out there fighting a boss? Students wonder, and a team of 3 rushes over hoping to lend a hand and maybe grab some credit. But when they arrive, they just freeze, because there's no team fighting this boss. There's just me. Right then I drive the sword home for the finishing blow, and the troll's health drops straight to 0. None of the nearby students dare step in. Soren and Willow are among them, both staring ahead in disbelief. He turned into this overnight. Then another group of 4 walks up, led by Sol and Zhao from the honors track. Didn't realize our school had a beast like you hiding around, he says with a grin. Your summon looks pretty banged up. Want us to patch it up? We got a priest on our team who's serious about healing. Before he even finishes, the cute girl standing behind him kicks him. I look at them and smile. No need, but thanks. They turn to go, but as they're leaving they catch a glimpse of the score glowing on my wrist. 5,320. And Sol and Zhao nearly loses it trying not to swear out loud. Right then Willow walks over, her face flushed. But the moment she gets close, Shadow's blood-red eyes lock coldly onto her, and she suddenly feels like she stepped into an ice cellar, her legs going weak beneath her. I don't turn to look at her, afraid I'll get pulled back under her spell if I do, and head back into the cave instead, letting Shadow keep reinforcing itself out of sight. Once every last monster nearby has been devoured, a layer of energy wraps around it like a cocoon, and this evolution looks even bigger than the one from the cheap lean meat, though there's no telling what kind of power will step out of it. Before long, a pair of claws tear the cocoon open, and Shadow emerges, grown again. Its fur now a deep midnight blue, cold and regal, 2 new skills in its arsenal, Intimidate and Flame, its talent even bumping up a full tier. A complete transformation, top to bottom. With about an hour left before the trial ends, I climb onto Shadow's back and go hunting for more monster territory. 10 minutes later, we arrive near the domain of another boss, the level 15 Twisted Tree King. Watching me head that direction, Lucian outside can't help frowning. He knows the Twisted Tree King's health and attack power more than double the troll's, and I'm still only level 4. A jump in combat strength that large is rare even on a national scale. The instant I step into the muddy clearing, blood-red eyes snap open across dozens of trees at once, massive trunks splitting open as roots tear free from the ground, limbs stabbing toward me from every direction. I don't flinch, charging straight in, drawing the sword from my staff and cutting in the blink of an eye. Moving so fast I leave an afterimage behind. Limbs fall to the ground, severed clean. My eyes go cold, and in 3 strides I close the gap to the nearest tree spirit, driving my sword straight through its splitting mouth. Thick sap gushes from the wound, its health bar draining to nothing as it collapses, watching one of their own die. The rest of the tree spirits bare their claws and close in from every side. Right then Shadow lets out a furious roar and tears the nearest one apart with a single swipe, and black flame erupts from deep within its body, spreading across its entire frame, catching the tree spirit alight and jumping to the next one, and the next. They scream, twisting in agony, but no matter how hard they struggle, nothing puts the black flame out. It's burning through their very life force. Even I'm a little surprised at how brutal Shadow's fire has become. Within moments, the whole grove of tree spirits is reduced to ash, and the black flame flows back into Shadow's body, meaning it can now skip eating altogether and absorb energy directly from the fire itself. In a short span of time, Shadow and I both level up together, and my score jumps straight to 7,120. The ground explodes beneath us. Golden bolts as thick as a man's arm come slicing through the air. And a furious, savage roar rolls in from somewhere ahead. Hundreds of tree spirits part to reveal a massive tree king, well over 100 meters tall, rising slowly into view. I take a quiet step back, even with all my stats past 50 now. Going up against that thing myself would probably end badly, and I know my limits well enough to admit it. Shadow, take them, I say. When the enemy's this strong, that's what the summon is for. Shadow's eyes flash with menace, black flame wrapping its body, and in its strongest form, it charges straight at the twisted tree king. The fire devouring everything in its path as more and more tree spirits cry out in agony behind it. I move in to clean up stragglers, watching them fall one after another. The twisted tree king lets out a long, mocking laugh as countless golden bolts rain down on Shadow. But Shadow ignores its own defenses entirely and barrels toward the tree king's core. Sharp claws wreathed in black light, tearing a strip of bark loose. The tree king's face twists in pain as bolts pierce Shadow from every angle. But Shadow, relying on raw physical resilience, trades hit for hit and lets the black flame creep steadily upward. The tree king's eyes blaze gold as it feels its own life force being eaten away bit by bit. And in a flash of panic, it tries to flee. But Shadow roars and the black flame snaps around it like a chain. Its assault getting even more brutal from there. By now, Sol and Zhao's group of 4, who'd come to help, are gulping nervously, faces pale with shock, watching a second stage. Level 15 boss get overwhelmed like this. Seeing them there, I'm a little caught off guard myself. Then the sound of something colossal collapsing rolls through the clearing. The twisted tree king is finished. White light rises around me as my level jumps to 8, and the score on my recorder climbs by another 3,000. I leave the rest of the tree spirits for the 4 of them to finish off and claim. That's a ridiculously easy way to score points, Celine says, mouth hanging open, since in barely 10 minutes their group has already hit the minimum threshold for the top universities in the country. We've never faced monsters and not gone all in before, Solon Zhao admits, shaking his head. It's just that Shadow's presence terrifies these things so badly none of the tree spirits dare turn and fight back no matter how we come at them. With that, the exam is effectively over. The dungeon begins its forced evacuation, and student after student, wrapped in white light, streams back into the wide-open plaza, met with waves of cheering. Shadow, now 7 meters tall, settles beside me without moving a muscle. He actually pulled off first place. Lucien and the other teachers flush red with excitement. This is terrifying. 3 separate talents. And he's monstrously strong in his own right too, killing this many monsters as a summoner and reaching this level. Nobody's ever done that before. Old Lu, you've got yourself one hell of a student. Come on, let's go greet him, Lucien says, unable to wait, dragging the others along with him. On the far edge of the plaza, Willow's face has gone pale with regret. She gave up on her dungeon and was eliminated an hour ago. Her score isn't even enough for a top university, and it's entirely her own doing. She thinks bitterly, since he clearly wasn't weak. He just never told her. And if he had, she never would have teamed up with Soren in the first place. A flicker of resentment settles behind her eyes. Meanwhile, Sylvain is surrounded by third highest teachers and their principal. Everyone's sighing at once. Our school really got lucky, they mutter, producing a monster like this one. Sylvain, don't let it get to you. Your 19,500 is still a fantastic score. Sylvain just smiles and says she's fine, then glances curiously toward the direction of the other school, something turning over in her mind. Right about then, the provincial leaderboard drops, and there's no question about it. I'm sitting at number 1. Shadow really is something else. I think its growth has no ceiling, and every evolution just makes it more terrifying than the last. I'm already looking forward to my next summon. Back home, I tell my mother and sister the news. And the million-yuan reward for placing first in the entire province clears out every debt the family has. From now on, neither of them has to keep living so carefully with every yuan. Then I head back to my room, ready for my first class change, which means clearing a randomly matched rebirth dungeon. I look at the interface and tap the button without a second thought, and vanish from the room instantly. Coordinate 08694. A world riddled with holes, teetering right on the edge of collapse. Humanity's last spark nearly snuffed out. Can you bring salvation or destruction? Optional Mission 1. Eliminate 1,000 disaster beasts and protect as many survivors as you can. Optional Mission 2. Help the disaster mother devour and evolve everything in its path. 10 participants this run. 24-hour limit. No way to return home early. I appear without warning in the middle of a pile of ruins, and I frown, choosing Mission 1 without a second thought, since if the disaster mother devours everything, there'd be nothing left for Shadow to eat. Right then, a shape bursts through a glass door nearby, shards scattering as a small, slight girl hits the ground. Blood-colored, skinless creature comes scrambling out of the dim building behind her and lunges. She reaches desperately for a long blade lying just out of reach, but she's a beat too slow, terror flooding through her as her hands rise instinctively to shield her face. A flash of sword light cuts through the air, and the creature's head separates cleanly from its body, its momentum carrying it forward before it collapses. I look at the girl, still frozen in shock beside me. "Hey," I say. "I'm Ethan. I'm Ren Lu." She answers. I'm about to ask her what's going on in this world when a shout rings out from somewhere nearby. Something's wrong. Everyone fall back. Ren Lu's face changes instantly, and she grabs my arm, trying to pull me along. Run. Before she can finish, a car comes hurtling straight toward us out of nowhere. I yank her back behind me and swing my staff up to take the hit head-on. The impact sends me skidding back more than 10 meters before I finally stop. Ren Lu rushes over to spite her own pain. "Are you okay?" I steady my churning blood and shake my head, then look up at what's charging toward us. Something standing on 2 legs, covered in vicious spikes. A blade demon. "We're not getting out of this," Ren Lu says grimly, her hand tightening around the hilt of her knife without her even noticing. The blade demon picks up speed, and the ground beneath it caves as it launches forward at full force. Before Ren Lu can react, I've already slipped past her to meet it head-on. I draw the sword from my staff and clash with one of its bladed arms, the impact ringing out with a sharp metallic crack. It shrieks and swings the other arm at my head. I knock it aside hard and shout back at Ren Lu, "Give me your knife." She doesn't hesitate, drawing it and tossing it straight to me. I feel something in me sharpen. "Come on then." As if it senses the challenge, the blade demon charges again immediately, both arms whirling. I don't back down. Blade in one hand, sword in the other, and for several seconds we trade dozens of strikes so fast we leave after images behind. After 1,000 exchanges, I finally spot the gap I've been waiting for. Tilt my head just enough to slip a lethal strike, and drive the knife up and through its arm before it can react. Then follow immediately with the sword straight into its chest, punching clean through tough hide and driving deep. Ren Lu walks over, rubbing her still throbbing arm. "You're not from around here, are you?" she says. I don't confirm or deny it. Mind giving me the rundown on this world? I ask instead. "It's the blight," she says. "It's been going for a full month now, and more people who can't take the strain start losing their minds, turning into things that only want to kill. Lately, the blight's been changing again, too, warping mountains and rivers, and nobody left even knows how to keep surviving. After she's done, I've got a rough picture of where I've landed. That's when a dozen or so people appear around a bend in the road ahead, faces tight with panic. "Little Ren, why are you still standing here?" "Run." A tall woman at the front of the group shouts. As she says it, the ground starts trembling faintly, like a flood building somewhere unseen. And above us, a massive band of rainbow-colored blight begins to churn and swirl. Roars erupt from every direction, and shapes appear atop the buildings around us, bloodthirsty eyes locking onto everyone below. The rainbow light forms into a wall in an instant, closing in and boxing everyone together. Legs slow, despair rising in every chest, throats tightening. "Little Ren, stay close to me," the woman, Willow, says, glancing my way and clearly assuming I'm from some other group of survivors. I ignore it and keep walking forward. "Wait. What are you doing? We're surrounded. This isn't the time to try playing hero alone." My mouth curls into a grin. No, I say. They're the ones surrounded by me. This many disaster beasts. And if I clear all of them, my score's about to jump through the roof. "Shadow," I call. And in a burst of white light, the 7-meter tall shadow appears at once. its roar shaking the sky. Its eyes sweep over the wave of monsters closing in, and it shifts straight into colossal form, its body surging to 28 meters, taller than some of the buildings nearby. Shadow's limbs surge with power, cracks splitting the ground beneath it as it slams into the crowd of disaster beasts like a missile. Under that kind of heat, nothing lasts more than a few seconds before dying in agony and dissolving into ash. Everyone watching from behind goes still, faces slack with shock. A dozen or so disaster beasts suddenly turn their attack toward me instead. Watch out. Lulu shouts at once, already moving to help. But a second later, her whole body locks up, because instead of retreating, I'm pressing forward, blade and sword moving like I'm cutting through vegetables. And in a heartbeat, every beast that came at me is dead. Lulu's jaw drops. There isn't a single trace of mutation on him. He should be weak. Then something clicks in her memory. Half a year ago, while scavenging for supplies, she ran into people just like this. No visible mutation, but frighteningly strong. People who tore apart survivor hideouts and left everyone exposed to be slaughtered. Who'd break someone's legs on the spot the moment they tried to run. Monsters wearing human faces, calling everyone else family while they did it. That memory has never left her. Ethan isn't like those people, though. Ren Lu says quickly, seeming to catch what Lulu's thinking. She's saved me twice already. Lulu takes a slow breath, a flicker of old hatred still burning behind her eyes. Even so, she says, stay away from her. For now, she's pulling most of the beast's attention. Let's use it and get everyone out. But just as they close in to move, lightning cracks down out of nowhere. No entry, says a young man with golden hair and a book tucked under his arm, stepping out of a nearby building. As he chants, spheres of lightning bloom around him one after another. My expression shifts fast, sweeping my blade sideways, just as a dagger stabs into it, and a woman with a sharp, striking face steps slowly into view in front of me. I don't hesitate, swinging straight for her waist, but she vanishes the instant the blade nears her, reappearing dozens of meters away without a word. I grit my teeth and charge her directly. She raises her sword and shouts, "Well, aren't you going to make a move?" As she speaks, a wave of fire bursts out of a nearby building, and the two of us collide, sparks scattering everywhere. Are you really a summoner? The burly man wrapped in flame sneers, heat rolling off him in waves. My face stays cold as I knock him back with the flat of my blade. Four more figures step out from different directions at once. You can't kill each other inside a rebirth dungeon, one of them says. Not unless it's a faction-split dungeon. And I didn't think anyone would actually pick Mission 1. Did your building not even discuss strategy before a rebirth dungeon? The disaster beasts obviously have the edge here. Anyone with half a brain knows what to choose. Watching the 6 of them treat me like prey that's wandered into a trap, I just smile faintly. Ever heard the saying, I ask, that the best hunters are the ones who look like prey? You think I'd draw you all out this openly without being sure I could handle you? Everything you just said sounded so confident. So as a thank you, let me treat you all to your deaths. How does that sound? I start laughing. Dinner's served. I tell Shadow, time to eat. A savage roar rolls out in every direction, and black flame within a few hundred meters converges onto the massive black wolf, its body surging another 8 meters, looking even more monstrous and menacing than before. Every one of them feels a bone-deep terror rise up from somewhere in their soul, watching the giant black wolf come storming toward them. And in an instant, it feels like the ground itself is rushing up to meet them, fear crushing their minds to the point of blacking out. 3 of them manage to fight through the panic and scatter in different directions right as Shadow's paw comes down. The unlucky 4th one doesn't even get a scream out before he's torn apart. Watching that, the rest go cold with dread. They'd figured that tying down the summon would be enough, and figured the summoner himself would be a match for them at best. But this summon isn't just a wall of muscle with terrifying damage. It's got crowd control on top of that. And forget tying it down. Staying alive for 3 minutes looks like a stretch. As Shadow barrels toward the nearest of them, the golden-haired man grits his teeth and starts chanting fast in some ancient tongue, and lightning twists violently together, coiling into chains as thick as a man's arm that wrap tight around Shadow's legs and jaw. Kill it now. I can only hold it 10 seconds, he shouts. But before he even finishes, Shadow yanks hard once, and the chains shatter completely. That's impossible. That's my signature skill. The golden-haired man stares, stunned. With him power buff I just cast, Shadow's raw power has jumped up another notch. Seeing this, nobody hesitates any longer. Everyone throws out their strongest moves at once. The sharp-faced woman splits into a scattering of shadows, striking at me from every angle. Sharp spikes of ice suddenly bloom above her head and rain down, forcing her back step by step. And I see a girl with icy pale hair approaching calmly, frost spreading out from beneath her feet with every step, freezing any beast unlucky enough to get close into a statue on the spot. I'll hold her off, I say. The burly man's flame surges, and he charges straight at me, while the other three move in together, aiming to finish me in one strike. Right then a voice bellows out, "Over here, ugly." Taunt activated, and all three heads snap toward the huge man holding a shield, eyes burning with fury. Shadow appears behind the three of them, now blinded by rage. And the next second its claw comes down, splitting one into pieces on the spot. It spins and slams a paw into the building beside it, sending a hail of debris tearing into the sharp-faced woman, shredding her clothes and skin. Shadow closes the distance instantly, claw raised, and black flame swallows her whole. On the other side, a burst of frost erupts, freezing everything, buildings and living things alike, into ice, turning the burly man into a literal popsicle. Through all of it, I only need a few quick sidesteps to dodge everything coming my way. Then one swing of the blade, and the golden-haired man's head parts from his shoulders. I turn and ask, "Do you know anything about the disaster mother?" Ren Lu nods. She's the one who rose out of countless disaster beasts, born anew, one of a kind. You're going after her, she asks. I nod. Killing her should be the only way to hit the top score. And it's probably the only real way to give this world any kind of chance. Right then Sylvain walks over. We meet again. Ethan, she says. I blank, caught off guard. And before I can answer, the big guy with the shield speaks up. Stun. No way. You're that top-ranked girl from Third High. No wonder you're this strong. We talk for a bit, and the three of us warm up to each other quickly. And I learn the big guy's name is Cassian Luo. I fill them both in on my plan to hunt down the disaster mother. And neither one hesitates before agreeing to come along. The three of us head straight for the city center. Before long, we reach a bridge. And suddenly a wave of disaster beasts, eyes flaring red, comes pouring toward us. Shadow immediately triggers Intimidate, then charges straight into the crowd packed across the road. Black flame detonating outward. My face tightens. The disaster mothers noticed us. Sylvain's eyes shift to an icy blue, calm as a still statue of some ancient god. And sharp, gleaming spikes of ice rise above her head. With a thought, every spike launches at the wave of beasts closing in from behind, punching clean through body after body, dropping them in rows like harvested wheat. But more just keep coming. Every disaster beast in the entire city seems to be converging on this one spot from every direction at once. I can feel the pressure building fast. Tens or even hundreds of thousands of beasts across the whole city. There's no way to burn through all of them, even if we fought until we dropped. So I shout, take out the head first. Send Shadow after the disaster mother. Hearing me, Shadow spins and charges straight toward the bridge. On the far side, something dangerous is waiting. The disaster mother herself. As Shadow reaches the other end of the bridge, a massive dark red tentacle, easily a dozen meters long, whips out of the swirling blight and slams into it, sending it crashing through building after building until it finally skids to a stop more than 20 meters away. Shadow roars, shaking off the dust and rubble, hauling itself up out of the concrete and debris. Cold eyes locked on the disaster mother ahead, a colossal eyeball over 60 meters wide. Countless smaller eyes scatter across it, all fixed on Shadow at once. Black flame erupts across Shadow's body, and it charges without hesitation, closing the distance in a blur. As it barrels forward, the wrecked buildings around it shudder from the sheer force. The huge eyeballs, countless smaller eyes, all narrow at once, and 15 dark red tentacles lash out toward Shadow simultaneously. Shadow dodges what it can, and when it can't, it swings hard, claws wrapped in black light. But instead of tearing through, the impact rings out like metal striking metal. One of the tentacles catches Shadow and sends it flying. The hard-won ground it had closed suddenly wiped out again. Up to now, Shadow's been relying on Embodiment's raw strength and defense to bulldoze through fights at close range. But against something built like this, all eyes and endless reach, There's simply no clean angle to attack. Roaring, Shadow lets loose everything it has. Black flame detonating outward in a wave of scorching heat that spreads in every direction. It surges forward again, burning through its own reserves at a frightening rate, choosing to go all in on one final push. On my end, I go tense, the soul bond letting me feel, faintly, Shadow's life force slipping lower by the moment. Then, suddenly, Sylvain's eyes flare with icy light. 10,000 blades. Absolute silence, she says. And every trace of moisture in the air around us vanishes instantly. Countless disaster beasts freezing into crystal and shattering apart in a single breath. I seize the opening without a second thought. We're heading for the disaster mother now. Shadow needs backup. We reach the city center fast, a roar tearing through the air ahead of us. And we don't hesitate, charging straight toward it. What we find is Shadow, badly wounded, barely standing, but its claws are still dug into the ground, refusing to budge no matter how many tentacles slam into it, inching forward one stubborn step at a time. Seeing it like that, I sprint over immediately. Shadow, eat, I shout. Devour these things, while I cast Restore and Empower back to back. A faint white light settles over it, and its eyes snap wide, letting out a furious roar as it shakes off the tentacles wrapped around it and charges straight into the mass of disaster beasts. Black flame blooms outward like a flower opening, spreading instantly. The giant eye senses the danger and screams a command, ordering every beast to pull back. But it's already too late. Wave after wave of black flame, thick with devoured energy, floods back into Shadow's body. Without a moment's hesitation, I hit the Evolve button on the panel. Terrifying black power erupts from somewhere deep inside Shadow, tearing free and forming a pillar of black light that shoots straight up into the sky. Shadow's body surges past 100 meters in an instant. Congratulations. Your summoned Shadow has learned the skill Haste. Congratulations. Your summoned Shadow has awakened a new talent. Adamant body. All stats increased by 60 points. I let out a breath. Another full-scale upgrade. Shadow's eyes lock onto the giant eye, its whole body renewed, its coat now shot through with faint threads of gold, radiant and commanding. The giant eye's smaller eyes tremble violently. In the instant that black power erupted, it froze completely under the crushing pressure of something that wants to devour everything in its path. But the freeze is followed almost immediately by pure rage. It, too, can devour and evolve. It thinks it's the one meant to be the strongest thing alive. Its thick, dark red tentacles whip out with force enough to make the air itself scream. Shadow stands like solid rock, utterly unmoved. 15 tentacles lash across its body, and its faint golden light barely even flickers. The fused, condensed power of black flame explodes outward, forming a 400-meter-tall silhouette of some raging beast made entirely of fire. And within a kilometer, everything turns into a rolling sea of black flame. Shadow surges forward and slams into the giant eye, its claw rising, and behind it the massive burning silhouette raises a claw of its own made from pure black fire, both crashing down together. Several of the eyeball's smaller eyes go dark instantly, and it screams in agony. The tentacles thrash wildly against Shadow, but nothing lands. Nothing does any damage at all. The giant eye roars, drawing in the surrounding blight and pulling it straight into its own body, and its size surges even larger in response, its tentacles sprouting countless sharp spines. Power it had clearly been saving for its next stage of evolution, forced out early now just to survive. Tentacles close in from every direction, and the two of them tear into each other with everything they have, the ground shuddering under the force of it. Roar after roar rolling out across the sky. Hours pass this way, and by the end only Shadow is still standing among the ruins. The giant eye's countless smaller eyes dimming one by one as black flame slowly, completely consumes what's left of it. Sylvain and I look at each other and start laughing. Between killing the disaster mother and thousands of her beasts, the score coming our way is going to be enormous. Then, with a chime, the three of us vanish from where we're standing. Time's up. Calculating your results now. Total kills: 8,560. Congratulations. You've unlocked a new class skill, Blade of Spirit, a blade that exists somewhere between real and unreal, ignoring any physical defense a target has and dealing damage straight to the mind. I stare at the panel a little stunned, ignoring physical defense entirely and hitting straight for the mind, meaning as long as the target has no mental defenses, this thing can end a fight in a single strike. It's the kind of skill that makes your scalp crawl just thinking about it. A blade made of countless glowing script symbols flickers into existence in my hand, and my mental energy drains completely just from summoning it. I shake my head and let it dissolve. This one's clearly meant to be saved for emergencies only. I check my phone, accept a friend request from Sylvain, and find a message waiting from Ren Lu. Recruiters from the top academies will be arriving at 2 this afternoon. He's written, "You should come by the school, since there's nothing else pressing." I head out right away. At second high, Ren Lu is already waiting by the gate, and the moment he sees me, he hurries over. "You made it," he says. "This time we've got 5 top academies sending recruiters here at once. Something completely unheard of for a school like ours." I follow him to his office, where he pulls a dragon-shaped ring from a drawer. "This is a reward from the city," he tells me. "Everything you need in terms of gear and skill manuals should be inside." My eyes light up. This is exactly what I need right now. The sword from my staff, ordinary grade at best, has been through way too much high-intensity combat, and it's basically falling apart. I take the ring and reach into it with my mind, and 2 pieces of information surface right away. A weapon called One Sky, Alt Blade, which in its blade form grants a sharpened edge that can't be blocked, and in its staff form grants a wisdom halo, constantly restoring mental energy and boosting the effect of any skill by 50%. There's a skill manual too. Teleport within 100 meters. Effectively instant. Looking over the gear and the manual, I'm more than satisfied. Right around 2. A black car pulls up outside the school, and 5 men and women step out. Lucian straightens instantly, hurrying over without a hint of hesitation, since anyone qualified to recruit for a top academy has already gone through their own class change. The kind of person even a city mayor would treat with respect. In the reception room, a man named KLG, looking almost too relaxed, leans back and asks lazily, "Where's Ethan?" Right then the door opens and Ren Lu walks in with me. KLG looks me over carefully, head to toe. "Not bad," he says. "A face like that belongs in Skylark Academy." The woman sitting beside him, Feng Yi, looks visibly annoyed. "People already talk about your academy picking students by looks. Here you are proving it." Then she turns to me directly. "Ethan, choose Qing Tian Academy," she says. "Pick any 3 resources you want on the house as your welcome gift." "Just 3. Someone scoffs. "Sounds like you're negotiating with a beggar. Are you trying to insult someone who took down the disaster mother?" "Exactly. Exactly." Another voice chimes in. "She doesn't even respect you. Don't go somewhere you'll just be disrespected." The whole scene leaves Lucian and Ren Lu standing there blinking, the air thick with tension. The second anyone tries to take the lead recruiting me, the other 4 immediately gang up against them, and the whole thing spirals into chaos fast. KLG takes a slow breath, then looks at me and asks, "You haven't started summoning your second beast yet, have you? If you join Yonk, I can push the request straight up the chain and get you the absolute best materials available for whatever you summon next. That black wolf of yours already has growth talent. Name whatever resources you want. I'll get them, including my daughter." Hearing that, the other 4 go quiet. Even by their standards, that offer is outrageous. This year alone, there are more than 10 students scoring above 20,000. And if they burn this many resources recruiting just me, they'll be at a real disadvantage competing for everyone else later. Deciding it isn't worth it, the other 4 quietly back off. I just shake my head. "Everything else is fine," I say. "But you can skip the daughter part." KLG's face relaxes, clearly pleased. "Fine," he says. "If you're into someone a little more mature, I could work too." I almost tell him that's not what I meant, but the words catch in my throat, and in the end I pick Skylark Academy anyway. Not because KLG is easy on the eyes, but mainly because what he's offering is simply too good to pass up. Not long after, the semester starts. Ninefold Prefecture, Zenith City, Skylark Academy. Countless students with the highest scores from across the entire country converge here at once. I pick a random dorm room and step inside, finding it already stocked with every amenity and daily necessity I could need. Just then my communicator buzzes, and a message pops up. "Your summoning materials have been approved." It reads, "Let me know if you need anything else and I'll push it through as fast as I can." After sending it, KLG leans back into his cushioned chair, and beside him, Wuya looks a little puzzled. Honestly, the resources we're giving him would be enough to recruit 4 provincial top scorers on their own. This is way beyond what he's actually worth. If I'm being blunt, he's nowhere close to matching what we've put into him. KLG just smiles at him. "Tomorrow's the new student welcoming ceremony," he says. "You'll see for yourself soon enough." I lay the summoning materials out on the floor, reach a hand into the empty air, and let the summoning ritual take hold. White light flooding the whole room. A few minutes later, standing in front of me, wings spread in 2 pairs. Butterfly, roughly 60 centimeters across, its whole body a shimmering, silvery sheen. Please don't tell me it's another weak one, I thought. My mouth twitches slightly, and I quietly pull up its stat panel. Summon, silver butterfly, level 1, strength 1, constitution 1, agility 1, mana 1. 4 points total across every stat. Weaker than Shadow was on day 1. I shake my head. Of all the summons to draw, I got the weakest one on the board. Still, it doesn't matter. I think I'll build your potential up from nothing if I have to. Watching it flutter slowly toward me, I hold out a finger and let it land. Detection begins. Loyalty, 100%, never betray. Begin the soul bond. The instant I confirm, agony tears through me from somewhere deep in my soul. Congratulations, your summon has awakened a unique SSS grade talent, myriad transformation, the ability to shift into any form and take on whatever abilities come with it. Right then the butterfly dissolves into silver light and reshapes itself into my own likeness, speaking in a flat, dazed little voice. Master, after a bit of exploring, I finally start to understand just how powerful myriad transformation really is. I open a crate sitting nearby, packed with individual pieces of armor plating, and point at the butterfly while sending it my intent through the bond. It nods softly, dissolves into silver light, and wraps around my arm, and in an instant a full suit of silver armor settles over my entire body. I don't feel a single ounce of extra weight. It moves like it's always been part of me. Satisfied, I realize myriad transformation can also absorb metal to boost its own hardness, which means, just like Greedy Gluttony, this is one of those broken talents with no real ceiling on how strong it can get. Deciding to focus on building the butterfly up first, I send KLG a message asking for specific metal materials with certain properties. Within half an hour the shipment arrives, a stack of rare metal ores, each one carrying a different property, every single one of them the kind of resource people fight over. Back in my room, I start feeding them to the butterfly. Before long, the armor covering me has turned nearly indestructible, tough enough that even a second-class change summoner would struggle to dent it. Its weight now sits at 5 tons, which does nothing to slow me down, but if it ever lands on an enemy, it's going to hit like a falling mountain. I head out to the common room, and the 3 roommates, already there, look a little surprised at the noise. One of them steps forward. Hey, he says, congrats on placing second in Xinyuan province. Emery's, pulling off a provincial runner-up spot with an ordinary class. That's genuinely impressive, though I have to wonder, isn't that mostly thanks to landing an unusually powerful summon? The one speaking, cold-faced and a little dismissive, is the province runner-up from Longja, 23,000 on his trial score. Though in his view, he only took first there because his province happened to be short on real top-tier talent, a big fish in a small pond. Emery's just smiles. If a summon that strong actually answered his call, he says, that alone tells you Ethan's got something the rest of us don't. Right as the tension starts to spike, a voice booms across the entire academy. All new students, bring your weapons and gear and report to Skylark Plaza immediately. Guess the welcoming ceremony's starting early, half a month ahead of schedule. Someone on the couch, Corin, says, and there are more and more mutated beasts showing up outside the city walls. They're probably planning to have us handle the cleanup. Hearing that, I go quiet for a moment, suddenly thinking back to what happened inside the rebirth dungeon. I hadn't expected Blue Star to be facing the same kind of crisis this soon. Right as I'm turning that over in my head, Kessler's arrogant voice cuts through my thoughts. Perfect timing. He says, Ethan, I'm going to crush you and prove I deserve that top score more than you do. Watching him look right through everyone else in the room like they don't exist, I can't help smiling. Fine, let's settle it then. Though I should warn you, I'm the one who's going to be leaving everyone else behind. Out at Skylark Plaza, the new students gather in a mass, and the academy director lets out a long sigh. Top 100, he says, will be required to go clear out mutated beasts outside the city. Growing fast under real pressure is the only way that works. The secretary standing behind him nods and reads off a tablet. The welcoming ceremony, originally scheduled for 2 weeks from now, is happening today. You'll be entering a large-scale dungeon rated for levels 20 through 30, Hunter's Gorge, and how you perform here determines how resources get allocated to you going forward. As the announcement wraps up, the dungeon gate creaks open, and a wave of pressure rolls out across the plaza. Some students' legs go weak, lips trembling. You've got to be kidding, someone mutters. I haven't even had my first class change yet. How am I supposed to fight in there? Cassian Luo is anxiously scanning the crowd for someone, and it doesn't take long before he spots the person he's been looking for. Brother Chun. I turn and see the towering Cassian Luo jogging over with a short-haired, gray-furred girl in tow. He'd mentioned wanting to enroll at Skylark alongside me before, and I honestly thought he was joking. Turns out he was completely serious. This is my sister, he says, Ren Luo. I blink, a little thrown. Hi, I say. Ren Luo ducks shyly behind her brother, her voice barely above a whisper. I let out a resigned sigh and send them both a team invite. Watching me team up and take on extra baggage, Kessler's brow twitches with disapproval. Before we enter the dungeon, he says coldly, try not to lose too badly. Ethan. I don't bother replying, and the three of us vanish from where we're standing. Before long, every student has been pulled into the dungeon, and an instructor waves a hand, projecting a water and wood illusion across the sky. Hunter's Gorge spans hundreds of kilometers, an absolute maze of terrain. The three of us have barely arrived when a snarl rips through the air ahead. Good timing, I think. Let's see where I actually stand right now. I let my focus settle for a moment, and a burst of white light announces the silver butterfly's arrival. Within a few steps, silver armor spreads across my whole body, and I grip my right hand tight, the sword form of my staff snapping into existence. Then I draw the silver blade strapped to my back as well, and stomp the ground once. My silhouette appears instantly dozens of meters ahead, right on top of the monster. What was meant to be a life-saving escape skill, I've repurposed into pure closing speed. The blade sweeps out like it's cutting tofu, gliding clean through several monsters at once, and without breaking stride I blur into a smear of afterimages, cutting a path clean through the pack before anything even has time to react, bodies dropping with stunned, uncomprehending eyes. Watching this unfold, Cassian Luo and Ren Luo realize they don't have to do a thing. Experience is just piling up on its own. This is what it feels like to hitch a ride on the right person. The instructors watching from outside stare in disbelief. That kind of speed and damage rivals some of the hidden melee classes, and his base stats shouldn't even allow for this. Not even after a second class change should Ethan have this kind of close combat capability. One of the instructors thinks it over and speaks up. Could that silver butterfly be his second summon? She wonders. A summon that turns into a weapon. Nobody's ever heard of anything like that. Even the deeply experienced vice director looks a little startled, glancing over at KLG, who's practically preening. He shakes his head. A dozen or so students already have more points than Ethan does. He says, team battles barely add up. If that's all he's got, that top score title of his is going to end up hollow, and he's supposed to be your future son-in-law. This reflects on you too. Before KLG can respond, the vice director gets smacked on the back of the head and stands there fuming with a face full of frustration. Meanwhile, deep in the dungeon, my armor is already soaked in blood. These level 20 monsters die in one hit each, which tells me I've basically hit the ceiling of a fully realized second class change. And even against a third class change opponent, I probably wouldn't take real damage even if I lost. Right then, a flood of negative emotion crashes into my mind, an overwhelming pull urging me to end my own life. Seeing me freeze mid-step, Cassian Luo calls out in a panic, Ning, pull your field back, now. Well aware of how strange her own talent can be, Ren Luo flushes with alarm and shuts it down instantly. I just laugh it off. It's fine, I tell them. None of that actually affects me. I check the recorder, only 120 points so far, way too slow at this pace. If I want to get strong fast, I need first place and the resources that come with it. Since between the butterfly and shadow, there's no such thing as too many resources. With that in mind, I let my focus settle again, and a burst of white light reveals a massive, savage wolf. Its howl tearing through the canyon like thunder, loud enough that Ren Luo, seeing Shadow for the first time, flinches hard and ducks behind me on instinct. I give Shadow its orders. Go, I say, eat every last monster in this canyon. Its eyes flash with menace, and it vanishes on the spot, tearing off into the depths of the gorge. Before long, the recorder on my wrist starts chiming non-stop as points climb steadily higher, and I head down a separate path, figuring we can farm points from both ends at once. Somewhere off in the distance, a girl swings a crimson thunder spear down into a crowd of monsters below, the ground splitting apart in a 100-meter blast radius the moment it lands, dark red lightning detonating outward and wiping out everything in range. Her face is flushed with excitement. None of these weaklings can even take a real hit, she says, and Osric, standing nearby, sighs, helpless. There she goes again. Then, Without warning, a wave of unsettling heat rolls through the air, and before she can react, Kestrel's eyes light up with pure battle hunger, dark red lightning surging violently around the black spear in her hand. Facing the massive black wolf charging toward her, she locks eyes with those cold, unblinking pupils, the kind of gaze that should make anyone's fear spike. But her stunning face only twists into something closer to excitement, and she charges straight at the giant wolf without a second thought. Watching his sister rush fearlessly into a fight like that, Osric doesn't even hesitate, quickly layering on several buffs and a shield, doubling her combat power instantly, enough to trade blows with a third class change boss. When the two of them collide, the force sends a shockwave rippling out in every direction. Watching the black wolf shrug it off completely, faint gold light flickering across its fur, Kestrel's expression falters. That hit carried third class change level power. How is he completely unfazed? Shadow looks down coldly at the human who just attacked it for no reason at all and swings a paw. Under that terrifying force, all three of her protective barriers shatter one after another, and Kestrel's body goes flying backward. Osric's face goes pale, and he presses his palms together, summoning a towering silhouette dozens of meters tall, radiant, and holy. Descend, 6 Saint Guardian Angel, Spirit, an SS grade talent, Angel's Blessing, a golden barrier of light rising instantly to wrap around both of them. Sister, fall back now, he shouts. But before he even finishes, Shadow has already closed the distance, raising a claw wrapped in black light and tearing straight through the golden shield like paper. It glances down at the two of them coldly, then simply walks past, not bothering with them at all. Outside, dead silence falls over the crowd, every instructor, even the vice director, completely speechless. Is this really what a summon should look like just days after its summoner's first class change? This shouldn't even be possible. This is already well beyond second class change territory. Watching something this far outside the norm, unmatched in its own tier, a genuine monster of this generation, staring at Kale G's smug, self-satisfied grin, Wu feels a jolt run straight through him. This probability shouldn't even exist, and somehow he actually pulled it off. Is he really some kind of prodigy? Over the next 10 hours, Shadow tears through tens of thousands of monsters, taking down 3 third-stage bosses along the way, and by the end its evolution meter still sits 1,300 points shy of the next threshold, all from half a day's work, though the closer it gets, the harder each point becomes to earn. Cassian Luo and Ren Lu are practically buzzing with excitement the whole time. This is their first experience leveling up this easily, without having to lift a finger themselves. I glance at the recorder with a smile. Our score has climbed to 34,000, and not far off, Shadow finishes one last sweep of the area and comes trotting back. I cast Restore on it without even thinking twice. Not long after, the dungeon's time limit runs out. White light wraps around us, and we're pulled back to Skylark Plaza. Countless odd stares turn our way instantly, and plenty of students around us look battered and defeated, especially Kessler, who slumped against the ground, humiliated. Even at full strength, he'd been swatted into serious injury by a single casual paw strike from a giant black wolf. Then the vice director's secretary calls out, announcing the full scoreboard. First place, Ethan, 34,500 points. Hearing that, Kessler's eyes go wide, and he snaps his gaze to the holographic screen, where sure enough my score sits at the very top, a massive gap between me and everyone else, with a steep cliff drop right after. Second place, Emery's, only 13,000. That's impossible, Kessler stammers, certain the board must be glitching. He's not the only one either. Plenty of others find it just as baffling. How could everyone's scores, even the 2 provincial top scorers, be sitting this low? Sensing everyone's confusion, the secretary explains. That black wolf you all ran into, she says, is Ethan's summon, and a fair number of you got swatted into serious injury just for going near it. Hearing that, every head in the crowd snaps up, stunned. On stage, the secretary continues. That wraps up today's welcoming trial. Credit rewards will be deposited into your accounts shortly. You're free to go. Back at my private suite, I push the door open and find Kessler standing there looking a little awkward. After a beat, he takes a breath and says, "A shipment arrived for you earlier. Said it was your second batch of materials. You weren't around, so I moved it into your room." I blink, then smile. "Thanks," I say. He turns his face away and mutters, Don't mention it. Quietly enough, I barely catch it. Back in my room, I open the black crate, and this batch of rare metals is even bigger than the first. As long as the butterfly keeps fusing more of it, its hardness could eventually surpass even Shadow's toughest form, and there's a chance of gaining all sorts of special properties along the way, which means eventually this won't just be about unbreakable defense. As a summoner, having that be my only real weakness is dangerous. If anyone ever targets that gap directly, plenty of ways exist to take me down through it. A few minutes later, the butterfly finishes fusing every last piece of metal, and now its hardness is beyond what even a third-class change fighter could break, its weight settling at a full 13 tons. With strength and mass amplifying each other, a single punch could crack the ground open. Right around then, the 50,000 credit bonus for placing first in the welcome trial lands in my account. After thinking it over for a moment, I spend every last point on several dozen portions of fruit-type resources. Once they arrive, I dump the whole batch out and summon Shadow to eat it all. Almost immediately, I feel warmth flooding through my whole body, an incredible sense of relief, and Shadow's body swells larger bit by bit, reaching 40 meters within minutes. Meanwhile, after my own class change into Summoner Swordsman, every level up now grants an extra 5 points of strength on top of everything else, which has basically twisted the Summoner class into something unrecognizable, turning it from a fragile, spirit-focused class that has to hide behind the front line into a genuine offensive powerhouse. The next day marks the official start of classes. All 4 of us roommates get assigned to Class 1, and on the way there, I run into Cassian Luo and Ren Lu, also in Class 1. The moment we step into the classroom, more than a few heads turn our way. Everyone's still a little stunned that one summon alone flattened the entire welcoming trial, something that's never happened before. Then 2 strikingly beautiful twins walk in through the door, Kestrel and Osric, glancing around the room for a moment before sitting down directly in front of me. Right after them, tall and composed, KLG walks in, sweeping his eyes across the room. "I'm KLG," he says, "your homeroom teacher from here on out. And don't bother bringing me your problems. I honestly can't be bothered." Then his expression shifts, turning serious. "You're all provincial prodigies," he says. "You worked hard to get into this academy, and I assume most of you did it chasing better resources. But unfortunately, the winged race has spent decades quietly positioning themselves, and their advantage keeps widening. Before much longer, they're going to break through our defenses entirely." The room falls into stunned silence. Society's been running smoothly. He continues. Entertainment industries have even been growing. The media keeps insisting things are getting better. Nothing bad ever shows up online. Everything looks calm and stable. And now I'm telling you catastrophe is coming. Reading the disbelief and confusion on their faces, KLG goes on slowly. "Doesn't it ever strike you as strange," he asks, "that society barely has any fighters above 4th class change walking around? That even the strongest forces guarding an entire province usually top out at 4th class change?" The room goes quiet, thinking it over, and it does seem true. Logically, fighters at 5th class change should be a common enough sight, not something you'd stumble across on every corner, sure, but not something you'd never see online or in daily life either. A dark thought starts forming in their heads. Graduates from the top academies are almost always 4th class change or higher, and most of them head straight for the front lines without a second thought. And that's exactly what's been buying everyone else this quiet, peaceful life at home. News like this, KLG continues, the kind that causes real panic. Every nation naturally suppresses it, which means most ordinary people have no idea any of this is happening. And right now, the bigger issue is that the mutated beast population keeps growing too, and if it isn't reined in soon, the winged race, once they notice the chaos, won't hesitate to launch their full offensive early. So, he says, looking around the room, this is the moment we're needed. Every academy is sending its best students to military bases to help cull the mutated beast population. Right now, anyone willing to volunteer for that mission, stand up. The moment he finishes, chairs scrape back across the room all at once. I don't hesitate for a second, and seeing that, Cassian Luo and Ren Lu are on their feet just as fast. Fighting mutated beasts was always coming, one way or another. This just moves the timeline up a little. Slowly, only about half the class remains seated. Watching this, KLG's mouth curves upward. Half the room volunteering, he says, "That's already better than I expected." Everyone standing, head to the military base now. A heavy-set guy still sitting blinks, wide-eyed. "Wait, us too?" he asks. "That's right," KLG says. "Everyone in this class is top 100 among the new students. that makes you all prime candidates. The only reason I'm telling you now is that the military wants a list of volunteers to mark as priority watch. If you genuinely can't find the courage, there's a second option: withdraw from Skylark Academy. Of the 20 or so still hesitating, more than half rise to their feet immediately. KLG leads everyone out of the academy gate, where dozens of transport trucks are already lined up waiting, rows of soldiers standing at attention with grim expressions. As every student climbs aboard, the once bustling academy grounds fall eerily quiet. Inside the truck, KLG pulls out a file and starts briefing us. This time we're headed to Hungwon Military Base, he says, 900 kilometers outside Zenith City. Right in front of it sits the Balian Mountains, a range stretching across hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. According to scouting data, even just the outer edge holds tens of thousands of level 10 through 30 mutated beasts, and go any deeper and you'll find just as many at level 40 and 50. All you need to do is clear the outer perimeter. For a long time, now the front line has managed to hold the enemy back purely through overwhelming firepower, trading numbers for numbers. But recently, for reasons nobody fully understands, their assaults have gotten far more aggressive, striking the defense lines from every direction, day and night, without pause, which is exactly why the front line has no manpower left to spare for a cleanup operation like this one. 8 or 9 hours later, the trucks roll to a stop, and heavy doors swing open on either side, revealing rows of soldiers in black combat gear already lined up, clearly expecting us. They snap into a collective salute, and the sight actually stirs something in everyone. Students who'd been slouching suddenly straightening up without meaning to. KLG steps forward. "Everyone, follow me to the mission assignment point," he says. Along the way, heads keep turning to take in the scale of the base. Sprawling and heavily fortified, gun emplacements standing guard in every direction. Before long we reach the assignment point, where a female soldier hands out sleek black wristbands to everyone waiting. They look similar to the recorders from the college trial, except these come with mission tracking, mapping, and an emergency distress icon built in. One tap, and the base gets an instant alert, sending help immediately, while anyone else nearby also gets notified and can respond right away. "Welcome," a cheerful voice chimes from the device. "I'm Xiao AI, happy to help." For this cleanup operation, every student is required to complete at least one mission per day, and you haven't met today's quota yet. Please select a mission from the board as soon as possible. I walk over to the board glowing with available missions and scan through a few options, deciding it's smarter to play it safe and pick a couple of standard third-class change-tier tasks. Then I feel eyes on me and turn around to find Cassian Luo and Ren Lu trailing behind, both giving me the same pitiful, pleading look. Given their current strength, heading out there alone would basically mean walking straight into danger every step of the way. "Come on then," I say with a laugh. Might as well see this through properly. Both of them nod eagerly, gratitude practically spilling out of their eyes. Watching this, Emery's, who'd been about to invite Ren Lu himself, stops in his tracks, feeling an odd twinge of jealousy. The twins were one thing, but now even Ren Luo's out of reach. Emery Vance approaches me instead. "It's dangerous out there," he says. "Anything could happen at any moment. Why don't we team up and watch each other's backs?" I turn to him, a picture of concern on my face, and tell him flatly, "Get lost, go find someone else." Emery Vance's face curdles with disgust, and he picks his mission and walks off with one of the support girls from class instead. "Corin," I start, but before I can finish he cuts me off. "You're a hidden combat class. Quit being such a coward. Go find some reliable teammates on your own. Worst case, hit the distress button. If we're nearby, we'll come collect the body." Suddenly, it feels like the whole room is radiating hostility toward me. Before long, I've picked out 3 missions. Clear a group of raging black apes, a twin-fanged giant tiger, and a blood spirit demon, all located about 200 kilometers out. Every mutated beast location has been mapped out by formation mages using swarms of micro-drones fitted with observation crystals. And since most beasts have strong territorial instincts, they rarely wander far from home. For this cleanup operation, every base came thoroughly prepared, making sure students could hunt efficiently and safely, factoring in real risk to life. Anyone heading out gets issued 3 high-explosive grenades and a heavy-caliber pistol loaded with 7 armor-piercing rounds, more than enough to hurt a level 20 mutated beast. Having zero confidence in my own aim, I just grabbed the 3 grenades and skipped the gun entirely, figuring my bare fist already hits harder than an armor-piercing round anyway. I turn and lead the other two off toward the vehicles, and before long we're driving straight into the Balian range. I summon the butterfly and let it wrap into armor, and right then the wristband chimes. Would you like Xiao AI to activate the flashlight? I say yes without hesitation, and a beat later bright white light floods the trail ahead. Back at the command center, every officer's expression tightens. A nearby micro-drone flags something off about our route. Something's wrong. An officer barks. They're headed straight toward beast territory rated level 30 and above. Why haven't they stopped? Check what missions they actually pick. A middle-aged man in a major general's uniform, General Vane, watches the female officer running the display. Ilsa, work fast, and her voice comes back tight with disbelief. Target 1, a level 33 raging black ape. Target 2, a level 36 twin-fanged giant tiger. Target 3, a level 39 blood spirit demon. Every single one of these is a third-class change tier mission, she says, and the last one's practically knocking on fourth-class change difficulty. Have they lost their minds? Merrick Young rubs his temples. That's supposedly Skylark Academy's strongest new student this year, he says, and he's only level 16. How does he have the nerve to take on missions 2 full-class changes above his own strength? That's basically suicide. But students who see the danger clearly and still stand up to volunteer anyway, those are rarely the type to abandon humanity when it counts. And even if this one's overconfident, we can't just let him walk into it unwatched. He gives the order immediately, sending 4 armed helicopters to hover nearby, ready to move the instant things go bad. Merrick Yang sighs, comparing notes with the other bases, and it's starting to look like Hengduan might be the one dragging everyone else down this time. Then, without warning, a massive serpent crashes through the brush ahead, a body a full 4 meters thick and dozens of meters long. Its jaws snap open, fangs sharp enough to swallow me whole, lunging straight at me. I spin instantly, both hands catching its fangs and wrenching hard, and under a strength no human should have, backed by 13 tons of pure mass. The fangs shatter on the spot, blood spraying as the serpent recoils in pain, but I don't give it a second to recover. The ground caves under my foot as I close the distance in a blur and drive a fist straight into it, shattering its spine on contact. It lets out an agonized screech, cold serpentine eyes flashing with fear as it tries to flee, but I grab it and drag it back toward me instead. It thrashes wildly, the ground shaking with every desperate struggle, but none of it matters. My fist crashes into its skull, blood and flesh exploding outward, bone caving in completely, and I finish it by grabbing its jaw with both hands and tearing it clean in half. Watching all this, Cassian Luo and Ren Lu are visibly shaken. Back at the command center, everyone watching the feed falls into a stunned silence. That's just insane, someone mutters. He's what, level 16? And he just went toe-to-toe with a level 29 giant serpent without breaking a sweat. What kind of monster is this kid? Merrick Young stares down at the file in his hands, flipping through it again and again. This clearly lists him as a summoner class, he mutters. Right then a roar tears through the command center speakers, and everyone's expression turns grim at once. A 50-meter-tall ape, muscles bulging across its entire frame, comes leaping down from a hillside, clearly stirred up by the noise of the fight and charging our way in fury. The female officer's face goes pale. This isn't good, she says. That's the raging black ape. How is it already level 34? Mutated beasts undergo a full transformation roughly every 10 levels. It could crush that giant serpent with one punch. Merrick Young shakes his head, not liking the odds either. There aren't many people in all of humanity capable of pulling off a combat power jump this large. His hand is already on the radio, ready to call in the 4 helicopters the second things turn bad. I haven't even had time to collect my kill when a massive black shadow, all teeth and bloodlust, comes crashing down from above. The ape's fists slam together into one massive hammer blow, and I meet it head-on without flinching, drawing the blade from my back and swinging it straight into the strike, catching that thick, leathery fist dead center. A shockwave rolls outward in every direction, but I walk away without a scratch, the butterfly's armor absorbing every ounce of the impact. The ape roars again, its body surging even larger, hitting 70 meters within seconds, and swats at me like it's swatting a fly, but I'm already gone, reappearing directly above its head. My blade comes down hard, the teleport skill firing off, the same skill that was originally meant to save my life, now doubling as a way to close distance in an instant. The strike lands like a bolt of light straight into the back of its skull, but leaves only a half-meter gash. Hurt, the ape spins its massive frame and starts swinging wildly with both fists, though I dodge every one of them easily. Then I close in and slash the same spot again and again in a rapid vertical strike. The ape slams a foot down hard enough to shake the earth, dust billowing out in every direction, but I've already reappeared a dozen meters clear. It's looking like 13 tons of sharpened force alone isn't quite enough to seriously wound something this size, and I've hit the limit of what I can pull off on my own here. Deciding not to waste any more time, I summon a blade that exists somewhere between real and unreal, its surface etched with unreadable white script, mysterious and dense with power, and the moment it appears my mental energy drains completely. My mind goes hazy for a second. First time debuting this thing, I think. Let's see what it can really do. I raise my hand slowly, and the ape's fur stands on end all at once, a wave of pure dread hitting its brain like something invisible and unstoppable. Is this ant actually doing this to me? It lunges forward, desperate to end the fight fast, but my hand has already come down. The blade cuts through its body without a hint of warning, and its massive frame simply topples over. A gust of wind sweeps the settling dust aside, and its body is still technically alive, but its mind has been shattered completely, killed outright. I let the blade dissolve, figuring the raging black ape's sheer presence has kept every other beast in the area too scared to come near anyway, and the fight ended fast regardless. Watching this from a distance, the armed helicopters slowly bank around and head back. The command center goes completely silent, everyone just staring at the screen, not entirely sure what they just watched. Merrick Young thinks it through for a moment and lands on the likely answer, some kind of mental damage skill, an extremely rare category of ability. But what actually shocks him more is my own raw combat power, actually pulling off a jump across 18 full levels and taking down a raging black ape without a scratch. And the fact that this clearly isn't some once-off burst move, it looks more like a baseline level of strength, which is the truly terrifying part. Every case he's ever seen of someone crossing an entire class change tier to win a fight relied on either a burst cooldown or some kind of ultimate, never a sustained state. Both approaches can produce that kind of gap, technically, but the difference between them is enormous. If someone could actually hold this level of power as their default state and still be capable of clearing 2 full class changes above their own tier, then on the front lines, that person would become the enemy's worst nightmare. The thought sends Merrick Yang's heart racing, a strange mix of nerves and genuine excitement. He strides out of the command center, ducks into a small, unremarkable room, locks the door, and activates a set of layered privacy wards. Then he carefully pulls out a communicator. "Zhanggu," he says, "we've got a monster on our hands at Hongduan base. He's insanely strong. I'm badly hurt just from being near him. I don't think we can keep him contained." About half an hour passes before a response crackles through. "Give me specifics. How strong are we talking?" Merrick Young thinks it over. "Put it this way," he says, "the two of us together could probably still end up with our heads pinned to the ground." A long pause follows on the other end. "That's not good," comes the reply. "If that's true, the whole of humanity might not be able to hold on to him. Might as well start preparing for an assassination attempt from the winged race." Merrick Young sighs. "He could crush me one-on-one," he clarifies, "but against you, Zhanggu, that's genuinely hard to say." Hearing that, the voice on the other end answers immediately. "All right, I'll go talk this over with the other thrones." Back in the field, Cassian Luo stares at the ape's enormous corpse, practically shaking with excitement. It didn't even need Shadow to take down a level 34 mutated beast. Brother Chun is unreal. I just laugh and let it go, and with a thought summoned the 40-meter tall Shadow, telling it to swallow both beast corpses. Its evolution meter ticks up by 0.2, still a long way from the 1300 it needs. After thinking it over, I pull out a handful of life crystals I'd collected from earlier kills and toss them straight into the black flame, and each one adds roughly a full point on its own. My eyes light up. Finally, a reliable way to speed up the evolution meter. We push deeper, and half an hour later a massive tiger, 30-some meters long, fangs jutting from its jaw, bursts out of the treeling. Before it can even close the distance, Shadow fixes it with a cold stare, and the sheer weight of Intimidate alone makes it hesitate. Then the ground splits open and Shadow appears directly in front of it, paw already swinging. Under that terrifying strike, the tiger goes flying, the recoil alone slamming it through several massive trees in a row, for deep gashes tearing across its face, blood pouring freely. It doesn't even get a chance to recover from the pain before Shadow, is already standing over it again. Not good is the only thought that manages to form in its head, but there's no outrunning that kind of speed. Within seconds, the tiger is completely swallowed by black flame. Even the command center flinches watching that unfold, those cold, unreadable eyes unsettling enough to send a chill through anyone watching, even through a screen, like death is one heartbeat away. Merrick Young manages a wry smile, feeling something close to awe at how fast the next generation is outpacing everything that came before. An hour of travel later, 3 of us and 1 beast well past the level 30 zone, and with Shadow's presence alone, nothing dares get close. Then a serpent, easily over 100 meters long, scales dyed entirely blood red, snaps its crimson eyes open, a wave of pure hostility rolling out as a warning to anyone trespassing on its territory. Shadow bares its fangs instantly, radiating an aura even more terrifying than the serpent's own. In the next moment, its body surges to nearly 300 meters, and the serpent, sensing itself outmatched, lunges forward furiously anyway, each step shaking the ground. Black flame rolls off Shadow in waves, claws wreathed in dark light, and faint gold threads begin glowing across its fur and skin, radiating something unshakable. The serpent opens its enormous jaws, rows of razor-sharp teeth gleaming, but they can't close around that golden light no matter how hard it tries. Shadow just stares back coldly, then brings a claw down hard, tearing through scale and flesh in one motion, leaving a mess of shredded red beneath it. The serpent roars in fury and whips its massive tail around, crimson light rippling along its length, carrying enough force to gouge for long trenches into the earth as it slams into Shadow, who plants its feet and absorbs the hit without moving. The serpent surges forward and clamps its jaws down, dragging Shadow into the lake behind them both, and the impact sends water exploding skyward, the 2 of them locked in a brutal struggle beneath the churning, muddied surface. Black flame doesn't dim for a second, the surrounding lake water steadily climbing in temperature instead. Even with the terrain in its favor, the serpent stays pinned no matter how hard it fights, its own bloodline talent flaring uselessly, unable to land a single real hit. Within minutes, the lake's water level has dropped by nearly half, and then the surface explodes outward as the massive black wolf bursts free, its size now pushing close to 300 meters, radiating a crushing pressure that makes anyone nearby instinctively want to step back. Even though Shadow has never once turned on us, Cassian Luo and Ren Lu still can't quite shake the fear crawling up their spines, and back at the command center it's much the same. As for the serpent, nothing's left of it at all. Right then the wristband chimes, Xiao AI announcing the mission complete, ready to be turned in back at base. By the time the 3 of us return to Hengduan, it's already 1 in the morning. I walk calmly up to the submission point and find a female soldier to hand in the mission. "You actually finished?" she asks, clearly not quite believing it. I nod and pull up Xiao AI's recorded footage as proof. It takes her a good while to process it. 200 contribution points total. She finally says, "Since you were on a team, how do you want to split it?" I divide it up between the 3 of us the way she suggests, and glancing at Cassian Luo and Ren Lu, I realize they're not just failing to contribute, they're not getting any real training out of this either, following me around like this. Probably time to find them a team that actually fits. Not long after I step away, the massive display board at the submission point flickers to life with a new line of text. Skylark Academy. First year, level 16 summoner, 100 contribution points, rank 1245. It's not just at Hengduan either. Every base hosting students from the major academies lights up with the exact same announcement at the same moment. Plenty of students standing around their own submission points go wide-eyed with surprise. Who even is this guy? Someone asks. 100 contribution points in one go. That's at least 2 third-class change tier missions cleared back-to-back. I'm a first year too. Someone else mutters. And my contribution points are still single digits. Isn't everyone's? I've only dared to take on first-class change tier missions. These mutated beasts are brutal. Even with a level advantage, I get pushed around. Right now, most second and third years are still sitting on just a few dozen points, and first years hitting double digits are rare enough on their own. What actually stuns everyone is that he's only level 16, a first year who just jumped 2 full-class change tiers and successfully killed 2 beasts level 30 and above. Over at Luoxiang base, Feng Yi is deep in a discussion about how to take down a level 60 beast on the perimeter when the leaderboard flickers with a familiar name, and he freezes mid-sentence. "That can't be right," he says. Hearing him, a few instructors follow his gaze. Old Feng, you know this student. A first year hitting 100 contribution points on day 1 seems like a stretch. Feng nods. That's the one I told you about. He says, the recruit I lost out on. KLG's offer was simply too generous to compete with. Otherwise, he might well be wearing our colors right now. Hearing that, the other instructors nod slowly. So that's the provincial top scorer everyone's been talking about. But someone quickly shakes their head. More likely, he's got a powerful upperclassman running interference for him. There's no way he pulled 100 points solo without help. That's probably it. Someone else agrees. But honestly, that kind of thing shouldn't be encouraged. This whole cleanup operation isn't just about controlling the beast population. It's about genuinely building strength. Right. Someone adds, times are tense. Real growth should come first. Chasing a ranking for its own sake doesn't accomplish much. The instructors shake their heads one after another. And Feng lets out a long sigh of his own, having had real hopes for me before, now feeling a flicker of disappointment settle in. Then he glances toward a black-clad young man standing off to the side and smiles. Yinsu, he calls, mission complete. Hearing his name, Kalen walks over. Yes, instructor, he says, took down 2 level 27 mutated beasts. Would have made it back sooner too, but ran into a level 33 armored lizard along the way. Took some real effort to put down. His tone stays completely level, like he's describing something entirely unremarkable. Feng Yi's mouth twitches, genuinely impressed despite himself. Not bad at all, he says. Level 17 taking down a level 33 beast. This year's crop of talent just keeps surprising me. Kalen's mouth curls upward, radiating quiet confidence. Don't worry, instructor, he says. Plenty of prodigies out there, sure, but none of them can touch me. I'm going to crush every rival in my path and claim the throne at the top of humanity. He glances around, noticing every instructor nearby has quietly covered their face without a word. Then his eyes land on the name at the top of the leaderboard, and his expression freezes solid. This can't be real. Absolutely not. How is there someone out there stronger than me? 100 contribution points. Even counting that armored lizard I killed, I still don't measure up. Sensing his spiraling disbelief, Feng speaks up a little awkwardly. We already talked this through, he says. It's probably an upperclassman carrying him. Don't read too much into it. Relief washes over Kalen's face instantly, though whatever careful focus he'd built up for his own third-class change task evaporates completely. He excuses himself quickly and heads straight back toward the mountains, now completely swallowed in darkness. Meanwhile, I make my way back to the dorm, grab a late-night barbecue with the rest of my roommates, and hand Cassian Luo and Ren Lu off to a team that seems like a better fit for them. The next morning at 9, I head to the assignment point and pick 2 difficulty tier missions requiring 4th class change strength. The moment I enter the mountains, an officer immediately calls out to Merrick Yang. He just picked up 2 4th class change difficulty missions, she says. Merrick Yang sucks in a sharp breath. 2 class changes wasn't enough for him. Now this kid wants to jump 3. The female officer starts working fast, and the alert quickly gets relayed through the wristband network to the 3 Skylark instructors stationed at Hongduan. After a quick discussion, they decide to send Instructor Jiang out to shadow me from a distance, ready to step in the instant I hit that distress button. Meanwhile, deep among the towering trees and vines, a black shadow tears through the forest at speed. Within about an hour, I reach the target location, where a massive 3-headed serpent, level 44, is already hissing out a warning. I raise a hand without a word, and a translucent, mysterious blade over a meter long materializes, and as I bring it down slowly, the serpent's eyes narrow, some deep instinct sensing death closing in. A second later, the left head lets out a horrific shriek and drops limp against the rocks. The other 2 heads nudge it frantically, and when nothing responds, panic sets in fast. I give Shadow the order to move in and bite down. At the command, Shadow lets out a roar, its body surging to nearly 300 meters, black flame erupting across its frame. Sensing the terrifying pressure rolling off it, the 3-headed serpent snaps its jaws open and spits a cloud of violet venom. But Shadow pushes straight through it, clamping its teeth down on the central head and dragging it into a violent roll across the ground. Seeing its kin under attack, another head roars and lunges, biting hard through the golden light and straight into Shadow's flesh, venom flooding instantly through blood and organs alike. The resilience granted by its colossal form lets Shadow absorb the poison's assault, and it swings a claw wrapped in black light, knocking the biting head clean off. Right then I draw the celestial blade and vanish, reappearing instantly in front of the serpent, driving the blade straight into one of its eyes. The head shrieks in agony, and at the same moment Shadow's claw comes down, wreathed in black flame, slamming it hard into the ground. But the serpent's massive tail, over 30 meters of raw muscle, whips around and catches me square on, sending me hurtling through the air like a missile crashing into the ground. Watching this, Shadow erupts with fury, black light detonating outward from its claws, tearing forward with unrestrained violence, and skin that should be nearly impenetrable tears open like paper, a gash several meters deep opening across the serpent's body. Shadow spins immediately and clamps down on the other remaining head's neck, tearing and twisting like it means to rip it clean off. The two colossal beasts grapple with each other, dirt and debris exploding in every direction, ancient trees splintering and collapsing around them. I climb up out of the settling dust completely unharmed, the butterfly's defense proving reliable as ever. Watching the two giants tear into each other with growing intensity, I settle onto a nearby rock, letting Shadow grind the fight down at its own pace. Not far off, a tall woman in white armor approaches without a sound. I catch the movement instantly and grab my blade, silver light flaring as I spin to meet whoever it is, only to freeze in surprise. "Instructor," I say. Instructor Jiang nods, visibly a little shaken by just how much force the blade's weight carried, enough that even her, a level 59 class changer, needed real effort to block it. "Instructor, why are you out here?" I ask. She composes herself, quietly steadying her trembling fingers, and answers evenly. "Heard a lot of commotion out this way. Figured I'd come check." Right then, one of the serpent's remaining heads, 30-some meters of pure muscle, crashes down out of nowhere, the impact sending dust rolling for miles and a furious roar echoing across the range. Shadow stands triumphant over the serpent's corpse, black flame devouring it greedily, converting every scrap into energy and evolution points. Its body, now well past 300 meters, looks less like a summon and more like an actual natural disaster given shape. Instructor Jiang watches, visibly stunned, and even from this distance the crushing sense of a creature that could devour anything in its path sends a chill straight through her. Back at the command center, the whole room erupts. 3 full class changes, a full 28-level gap, and he actually pulled it off. My god, how is his combat power this insane? I think he might even be stronger than that prodigy who awakened the SSS grade talent. Even Merrick Young can't hide the excitement in his voice. Countless streams of black flame curl through the air, funneling back into Shadow, and its body starts shrinking rapidly, settling down beside me to rest. Instructor Jiang offers a quiet word of concern before heading off. I pull up the map, confirm the next route, and climb onto Shadow's back to keep moving. Having devoured the 3-headed serpent along with its life crystal, Shadow's body has grown by a full meter, its evolution meter jumping by a solid 10 points. At this rate, I figure 4 or 5 more days, and it'll be ready to evolve again. And this next evolution should push its life tier all the way up into apex territory, its talent climbing a full grade higher too, meaning its combat power is about to become something else entirely. Just then a massive commotion erupts somewhere ahead, a furious roar rolling through the trees as an enormous ox comes charging into view, its whole body armored in thick, hardened dark yellow scales, 2 horns stretching more than 30 meters long, the ground splitting apart wherever its hooves land. Mission Target 2, a level 45 antlered war ox. I don't hesitate, casting Empower on Shadow immediately, and it lets out a roar as its body surges even larger, black flame detonating outward while faint gold light blooms across its fur, full combat power online in an instant. Right then the ox's razor-sharp horns slam forward, and Shadow raises both front legs to block, the sheer force of the impact sending it skidding backward hard, a long, torn trench carved into the earth behind it. In the blink of an eye, the 2 colossal beasts have crashed through several kilometers of terrain, and the drone units overhead scramble to keep pace. Back at command, Merrick Yang calls out immediately, "Get word out, tell every student along their path to clear out fast. Ethan's summon isn't going to hold back on their account." The female officer, Ilsa, starts relaying the warning at once. Shadow's claws erupt with black light as it drives both paws forward, flipping the ox clean off its feet, its massive body slamming into the ground in a cloud of dust. Nearby, a group of 5, 2 men and 3 women, sprint several hundred meters clear before finally stopping to look back, faces pale with shock. "So that's why Command told us to clear out," one of them says. "Good thing we moved fast. We could have been caught in that." and never made it out. Wait, one is level 45, but the other one's only level 16? Are you telling me that's level 16? All 5 of them stare, unable to quite process it. A female instructor stationed nearby senses the disturbance and starts moving to intervene, only for Instructor Jiang to appear silently in her path. Don't worry about it, she says. That's my Skylark first year summon. The instructor blinks, caught completely off guard. First year? You're not joking? Watching her reaction, the faintest hint of a smile tugs at Instructor Jiang's mouth. Yeah, she says evenly. He's genuinely exceptional this generation. The instructor just stares. This isn't exceptional. This is a monster, a first-year student pulling off 4th class change-level combat power. I've never even heard of something like this. Is this really what a top-tier academy's talent pool looks like these days? Then, studying Instructor Jiang a moment longer, she asks, so he's your student? Instructor Jiang's expression stiffens for a beat before she clears her throat. Yeah, she says, more or less. He and Kale G grew up together, so his student is basically my student too. That tracks. Hearing that explanation, the instructor's eyes flicker with something close to envy. Half an hour later, Shadow finally finishes swallowing the war ox whole, and its fierce gaze sweeps the area, and finding no sign of me nearby, it turns and heads back the way it came. It doesn't take long to spot me being chased around by a 50-meter toad, and instantly its fury spikes, closing the distance in a blur and bringing a devastating claw strike down, obliterating the level 36 beast in a single hit.
Seeing that, I let out a breath, used a healing spell, rested half an hour, then the 2 of us set off again to hunt mutants above level 40. 2 quests done, I didn't bother going back to turn them in. The round trip cost too much time, and I could afford to lose a few contribution points. What mattered now was getting Shadow to evolve as fast as possible and getting myself to level 20 so I could enter the rebirth dungeon. Ever since I'd learned how bad things really were for humanity, I'd carried a nameless urgency. Deep in the night, a roar broke out beneath the mountain range. Shadow was wrapped in a terrifying pressure, 2 level 42 mutants lying dead at his feet, black flame devouring their corpses and folding the power into his own body. I was gasping, my mental strength spent to the limit, unable even to sustain the healing spell, my mind hollow, my body close to failing, aching all over. I'd just used my own body to block another mutant for Shadow for a few minutes, and it had nearly gone wrong, but the gain was worth it. Over the whole day we'd killed 15 mutants above level 40. Shadow's base form had grown to 58 meters, every stat up by 58 points, all past 300. If we faced the wood-legged ox now, it would take 10 minutes at most, and the 2 level 42 mutants beside it would be crushed outright. His evolution value had gone up 195, leaving only 1,020 to go. When I got back to the Hengduan base, everyone let out a breath. The female officer swallowed, couldn't stop herself blurting it out. Insane. 15 mutants above level 40 in one day, converted to contribution points that would be over 2,000. Hearing that, the room looked stunned. Right now, the highest scoring student at this base had only 700 points. He's also from Skylark Academy, someone said, a real collector. 3 winters ago, he took down a fangtooth. What about the other bases? Commander Yang asked. The officer's hands moved fast across her console. Then she answered, Luoxiang Base, home to several other academies including Beilong, had a top student at 1,000 points. Next was Yuntian Academy in the south at 890, and Qingtian Academy in the west at 850. This mutant-clearing operation had over 100 academies involved, spread across more than a dozen military bases, starting with the largest range with the densest mutant population, before sweeping the surrounding areas, expected to run for months, maybe longer, until the mutant population no longer threatened the cities. Why such a gap between bases? I asked. This year's cohort is unusually strong, Commander Yang said. Geniuses everywhere, so you can imagine how brutal the competition is. Everyone pushing themselves to the limit, no one willing to fall behind. It's a good thing, though. The faster they clear their zones, the sooner they can spare strength to help the weaker bases. Outside the 5 bases run by top academies, the other 13 weren't doing well. Mutants above level 20 barely thinning at all. Commander Yang nodded, so we need to move fast too, and try to free up support for the others. I got to the quest counter at 2:30. The road was still lit up, students grilling mutant carcasses they'd hauled back on armored trucks. After turning in my quests, my ranking shot up like a rocket, from 1245 to somewhere near the top. I didn't care much, just turned and headed back to the dorm. The moment I opened the door, Julian rushed over and stared at me like I was some kind of monster. Be honest, Ethan, he said. Are you a person wearing human skin? That jump in combat strength is way too much. I just smiled and said nothing, sat down. The academy form was already on fire. Julian sat beside me, still shaken. Everyone assumed a senior had been carrying you, he said, and they're tearing into whoever it is. If it had just been the 3 transformation task and 100 contribution points, people might have let it go, but now almost everyone thinks it's fake. Poor Nolan's getting hammered, he added. He's the top suspect. Most of the accusations are aimed at him. Why him? I asked. Right then, a friend request lit up on my wrist device. It was Nolan, the senior everyone thought had been boosting my score. I accepted. The first thing he sent was a single line. A level 52 rock dragon breath tomorrow. You interested? I looked at the message and replied, I just need the life crystal and the corpse. You can keep the points. We agreed on a time and place. The next day I walked out past the base gates. Nolan waved me over. Beside him, a girl with a striking figure lit up and said, Hi, I'm Lisa, and this is Clark. I nodded, and the 4 of us climbed into an armored truck and headed into the mountains. On the way, Nolan explained, the rock dragon breath carried a trace of royal bloodline. Its talent unknown, so we'd need to be careful. Junior Ethan, he asked, how strong is your summon? I said flatly, holding off a rock dragon breath alone isn't a problem. All 3 of them lit up at that, relieved they hadn't picked the wrong person. If my strength had only barely matched a level 40 mutant, this fight would have gone nowhere. Seeing my confidence now put them at ease. The truck went 200 kilometers before everyone got out. Nolan stopped and turned. This is its territory, he said. I'll draw it out. Get ready, I said calmly. No need. A thought, and a 58-meter black wolf descended, its violent pressure sweeping out, its roar carrying for kilometers, sending countless mutants fleeing in terror. The other 3 flinched. Deep in a rock cave, a pair of lantern-yellow eyes snapped open, and a terrifying presence exploded outward. The rock dragon breath stepped out, each footfall shaking the ground, its 500-meter body covered in scales like bedrock, its pressure alone enough to unsettle anyone nearby. Nolan's group went tense. They'd underestimated it. My face stayed calm. I reached Shadow through thought, and he surged instantly to nearly 500 meters, black flame bursting out, gold light rippling through it, his presence growing even more terrifying. The 3 of them were stunned. The rock dragon breath's eyes held contempt. It could tell the beast before it hadn't reached its own level. Only the black flame gave it any real unease. Shadow let a flicker of provocation show, and the dragon went into a rage, slammed a foot down, cracked the earth, and sent dozens of stone pillars racing toward him. Shadow didn't move, stood firm in front of the 4 of us, took the hit with his adamantine body, and a blacklit claw shattered the pillars in an instant. The dragon lunged in and swung a massive palm down. Shadow sidestepped and struck back, only managing to scrape off a layer of scale. The dragon turned and struck again, this time with its talent behind it. Golden light flared, its weight surged to something crushing, like a mountain falling, the force alone cracking the air. The gold light shielding Shadow shattered almost immediately, and he was knocked back dozens of meters before he steadied. Seeing the fight had turned, Nolan dropped everything and threw group buffs, then poured single target buffs entirely into Shadow. He'd realized fast that the dragon was far stronger than expected, more than they could handle even together, dangerous even matched level for level. But he was also stunned that a summon at level 16 could stand against something at 52, a gap of 36 levels. Lisa nodded, and a golden glow lit up around her. Runes bloomed beneath all our feet as a current of power flowed out, wrapping itself around Shadow in rings of light. His stats surged. Nolan looked on in disbelief. The same buffs on him would have doubled his power, but on Shadow the boost was far weaker. It was almost frightening how much he was already carrying. Lisa kept going, called her talent, the goddess of heavenly law's protection, and after a brief channel, a divine figure wielding twin swords, indifferent to heaven itself, appeared above Shadow. Its closed eyes opened, and a killing pressure that felt like it could end all things burst out. I quietly cast reinforcement on top of it. Under the stacked buffs, Shadow's stats hit 2,000, the flame's temperature climbing with his surging power. Even 100 meters away, the other 3 could feel the heat. The rock dragon breath went rigid at the shift, then turned its gaze on the 3 humans. Trying something clever, it seemed to think. Nolan tensed, drew his sword, activated his own talent to push past his limits, and the ground beneath him exploded as he appeared above the dragon in a blink, loosing a dozen strikes in an instant, but they barely scratched its hide, less than an itch to the dragon. He didn't push his luck, pulled back immediately. As he leapt away, the dragon roared skyward, and a yellow current burst out, spreading 100 meters into a field of crushing gravity. Nolan dropped straight out of the air. He just managed to stand when the dragon's palm came down to crush him, and a black shadow slammed into it first, knocking the dragon flying with a shockwave, like a mountain toppling. Nolan looked up at the huge black wolf standing over him, eyes full of gratitude, and scrambled away from the crater. Back with the group, he gave a bitter smile. I didn't think it had a second talent, he said. Its real strength might be closer to a level 55 mutant. We're useless here. I'd been worried you weren't reliable enough, and now it's the opposite, if it weren't for Shadow. I'm keeping the buffs and heals running as best I can, but if it comes to it, we should pull out. Drop the quest, I said evenly. Fall back a kilometer. Shadow's about to go all out. The three of them stared. That wasn't even his full strength. They didn't hesitate long, turned and ran. Half a minute later, from a kilometer away, they turned back to look. A vicious roar tore across the sky, black flame surging out in a wave that spread a kilometer wide, the pressure climbing to its peak, the air around it shimmering like heat haze for miles. A 700-meter phantom of pure violence slowly took shape, radiating a hunger to consume everything. The three of them went pale, fear rising in their chests. Lisa's legs gave out. She could feel the goddess protecting Shadow being torn apart by that force, and the shock of it hit her like watching her own faith struck down. The rock dragon breath's eyes filled with terror, trapped in the black flame, its scales melted layer by layer, the yellow current stripped from its body and devoured before it could escape, its gravity field crushed flat. Seeing Shadow's mocking expression again, it roared in fury and lunged, its huge claw tearing through the flame with yellow light behind it. Shadow didn't flinch. The phantom's monstrous claw of condensed flame met it like lightning, and the collision sent black and yellow shockwaves tearing outward, the boom rolling across the land. The dragon felt sudden agony in its palm. Its scales, meant to be near impenetrable, had been torn open by the flame claw, the heat eating through its life force. It panicked, called its full power in one last strike, spun, and swept its 100-meter tail. Shadow leapt lightly over it and closed the distance, swung down, and the dragon screamed. It had always relied on its defense, had barely ever taken real damage, and now it was on the edge of death. For all its strength and armor, it was slow and clumsy, and with the phantom's extended reach, Shadow simply kited it, leaving it stamping helplessly in place. After half an hour of grinding it down, the dragon's legs buckled, its life nearly spent, its eyes full of fear. Shadow, unmoved, its rock-solid eyes full only of hunger, black flame boiling, brought its claw down for the final blow. The dragon roared in defiance to the end. Back at command, Commander Yang was certain. This alien race's real target was Ethan. He said coldly, "We should set this up properly, make the net solid before we cast it. Tomorrow, release his footage from the Fangtooth kill to the Joint Academy Forum. Let everyone know Great Shia has its blade out." The room lit up with excitement. Nolan's group made it back to the meeting point. Lisa looked at me with open admiration. "Junior, that summon of yours is terrifying." Clark and Nolan nodded along. Nolan said, "Everyone else assumed I was carrying you, but it's really the other way around. Clark and I barely did anything this time. Take the points, split them with Lisa." I shook my head. "Let's keep it as agreed. I still want to hunt more level 50 mutants. Want to help." After Shadow devoured the dragon breath and its life crystal, his evolution value jumped 150 points at once, 10 times what a level 40 mutant gave. 10 more kills, and he might evolve again. Nolan's eyes lit up, and she agreed at once. Lisa's support had proven critical. The four of us spent the rest of the day clearing mutants between level 50 and 54, until late into the night, when I saw Shadow's evolution meter was full, and called the others back. Command was full of praise, 11 kills above level 50 in one day, faster than most instructors. The officer noted that the whole century-old mountain range held barely 1,000 mutants above level 50, and at this pace, clearing them all would take a little over a month. Commander Yang nodded, satisfied. Those level 50 mutants were the real hidden risk, and once they were gone, the smarter, stronger beasts wouldn't dare push in so easily. Back in the dorm, I pulled out my terminal and used contribution points to requisition 10 level 2 life crystals. Contribution points were worth more than academic credit, the currency of the front lines, earned only by contributing to humanity's cause, and clearing mutants counted. The crystals arrived quickly. I opened the case and took all 10, thumb-sized, into my hands at once. They shattered instantly, dissolving into a stream of fragments that poured into me, and my level shot up to 20. Looking at the prompt for second transformation on my panel, I confirmed it without hesitation. A flash of white light, and when my vision cleared, I was standing on a plane. A transparent panel appeared. Coordinates 00996. A world invaded by the Malefic. Its people enslaved. Quest: kill the Malefic. Party size: 1. Time limit: 24 hours. No voluntary return to Blue Star. My brow furrowed. The Malefic were one of the races attacking humanity, and they still had strength to spare for invading other worlds. My expression hardened. Sometime later, I reached a cliff edge. Below, next to a vast plantation, stood a group of gray-skinned Malefic, over 2 meters tall, standing upright with legs on top of their heads, their eyes bloodshot, driving numb-faced humans to bleed into troughs to feed something all black beyond them. Seeing it, fury took hold of me. Light flickered as combat armor covered my body, and I dropped from the 100-meter cliff, the ground exploding beneath my landing. As two of the Malefic were talking, a crash sounded behind them. They turned, confused, and saw a silver blur tearing through the dust. I was on them in a blink, an armored fist punching through one with a white shockwave, shattering its nose and skull, sending it flying like a cannon shot dozens of meters into the dirt, concussed. If its its body hadn't been tough, its skull would have burst outright. The other's face changed, and it summoned a spike of black force. I didn't dodge, just caught it, and crushed it in my hand. It panicked, turned to call its kin, but I was faster, drew my blade, and cut it clean in two, its gray blood spraying my armor. The rest of the malefic finally reacted, dozens of furious eyes turning on me. I felt no fear. My blade shifted into a 3-meter spear-form weapon, its weight shaking the air with every swing. In a blink, I was 3 meters from one of them. He raised a shield in shock, but the blow sent him flying into the cliff face. He pulled himself up and looked at me, wary, strength and speed both beneath mine, though he was a 3-ring malefic. Then, remembering there were 80 of his kind around, he laughed cruelly and called for the others to attack together, to tear me apart and harvest my blood fruit. All of them roared, black power surging, the air thick with malice. It didn't touch me. I charged, my weapon tearing through the air, and the 2 nearest had their skulls crushed instantly. Spines of black hair shot at me, struck my armor, barely scratched it. Before they could recover from their shock, I was already among them, cutting through wave after wave, like some human-shaped beast. My raw strength stat passed 200, driving me forward unchecked. My weapon crashed down from above, and the elite malefic's face changed. He called on his talent in a panic, his skin splitting to grow hard black plating, but it made no difference. My strike split him in two anyway. My arm had. It punched clean through him and blew his skull apart. Watching his brother die, the other elite's eyes went wide with grief and rage, and he turned to run for the royal city. I shifted my weapon into a rifle form, aimed, and fired with everything my arm had. It punched clean through him and blew his skull apart. The rest of the malefic roared, "He's out of a weapon, kill him now," and before the words finished, I'd already punched the skull off the next one who charged. I kept fighting barehanded after that, every punch carrying a white shockwave, and before long, all 80 of the malefic there were dead. Just as I went to pick my rifle back up, a giant eye made of gray runes appeared in the sky. I looked up at it. I'd been found. I took a slow breath and called Shadow, and a 100+ meter form, wrapped in savage pressure, descended. Reinforcements were already on their way, so to be safe, I confirmed his evolution immediately. With that confirmation, power surged from deep within Shadow's core, an evolutionary force sweeping through his whole body and erupting as a pillar of black light that punched through the clouds and shattered the gray eye outright. The ground itself seemed to shake. Shadow roared skyward, and the pressure carried for miles. "Congratulations, your summoned Shadow has gained a new skill, All-Out Might. Congratulations, your summoned Shadow has gained a new talent, Death Insect Eyes. All stats up 90 points. I let out a breath. Another full-scale upgrade. The strongest part was probably the flame ability now. With 3 powers fused, it could form a full domain. As for the Death Insect Eyes, untested, but it was hard to imagine a talent tied to a killing blow being weak. Right then, faint rune patterns began forming in the sky again, and a huge gray eye reappeared. Beyond it, on the horizon, a wall of malefic came charging, the 10 in front already level 55. No level 20 rebirth dungeon had ever been this hard for a human. My mind moved, and my rifle reshaped itself back into armor. Coldly, I said, "Shadow, leave none of them." As I spoke, Shadow's body surged, rapidly growing into a black beast, a full 550 meters at the shoulder, stretching over 1,000 meters long. Black flame burst from every part of him, his deep blue eyes shifting to a gray insectile stare, a death aura spreading that unsettled anything living nearby. His roar carried for over 10 kilometers, and under that pressure, the entire malefic wave went still, dread pouring in through instinct alone. The flame burning across his whole body promised something extremely dangerous, its heat undiminished, even from kilometers away. At that scale, Shadow's stride covered hundreds of meters at once, enough to put the 5-ring malefic instantly on edge. Then he surged forward, the ground for hundreds of meters cracking apart as he used both haste and all-out might together, drinking in ambient energy, and appeared instantly in the middle of the malefic ranks. His gray insect eyes fixed on them coldly, and his enormous claw came down. A wave of shadow fell over them. A huge swath of malefic were reduced to pulp beneath it and consumed instantly by black flame. Seeing this, the one leading them, Viscount Hrim, a 5-ring noble among the malefic, shouted for the rest to ignore the beast and go for the human. Watching them try to rout around him, Shadow's insect eyes went cold, and his forepaw slammed down with a roar. Black flame bursting outward for kilometers, swallowing everything in its path. The malefic panicked. Not only were they burning, their lives themselves were being drained away, and within seconds, the weaker ones were nothing but ash. Hrim looked stunned. What kind of power is this, he thought. It's burning my life source directly. Life source meant lifespan itself. Once lost, it couldn't be recovered without rare treasures. He gave the order at once. Attack now. If this drags on, we won't have much life left, even if we win. The 9 5-ring malefic nodded and drew their weapons, unleashing their strongest strikes together. but when they struck Shadow, a golden light flared up, radiating something unshakable, and every attack was blocked outright. Rim ground his teeth. How is his defense this strong? Then Shadow's giant claw came down like a mountain, and black war armor tore out of Rim's back, launching him away like a blade. But his mind was suddenly flooded with terror. A pair of merciless insect eyes filled with death fixed on him from somewhere unseen, and his body froze mid-air. Under the death eye's pressure, the intimidation effect had grown far stronger. The giant paw came down, and Rim couldn't move at all, the ground caving in beneath him like something ancient turning over. Watching this black wolf descend like a natural disaster, the remaining 9 Malefic could see the fear in each other's eyes. "This thing's a monster," they said. "Let's run," and they broke black bone wings and fled toward the royal city with everything they had. Shadow devoured Rim completely, then lifted his gaze coldly, picked one of the fleeing Malefic at random, appeared behind him in an instant, and tore him apart with a black-lit claw. Watching that, the remaining 8 nearly lost their minds with fear, wishing they'd grown a second pair of wings. Then a death aura rolled out from Shadow that made even the Malefic's bones crawl, turning the ground gray around one of them and erasing his life instantly. Meanwhile, I moved on the ones still coming at me, expressionless, and cut through them in every direction, splitting bodies open under blows they had no defense against. Soon the ground for 100 meters around was covered in gray blood and remains. Once Shadow finished, I pressed on in the direction the Malefic had come from, meaning to wipe them out entirely. This latest devouring took in thousands of Malefic at once, and Shadow's frame grew massively again. Though the energy required climbed steeply, his evolution meter only gained 100 points this time, nearly 10 times harder than before evolving. Then a massive city came into view, hundreds of meters tall, and the Malefic had already retreated, all but one, level 59, waiting alone. This one was Prince Valley, a son of the Demon King himself, and his eyes were ice cold. Behind his 6-meter frame, a pair of terrifying black bone wings spread wide, dark power swirling around him like a cross of current, dimming the air itself. Looking at him, my voice went flat. What a foul presence. "Shadow, take him. I'll clear the rest." Shadow's body surged instantly to 1,000 meters, black flame bursting out like some black disaster given form, its pressure sweeping the land, cracking the plain for a kilometer around. He shot forward and appeared before the city. Looking at this wolf 100 times his size, Valley showed no reaction at all. A black-lit claw tore through the air like lightning, and where it struck, walls harder than steel shattered like paper. But just before it landed on Valley, a barrier of condensed dark current stopped it cold. "Don't think killing a few ants means you've turned the tide," Valley said flatly, and flicked a finger. The black barrier swelled and burst, throwing Shadow back hundreds of meters. Then dark power surged, forming in an instant into a 100-meter blade, radiating corruption, turning the grass gray for a kilometer around. Dark current spiraled up around Valley, his pressure climbing to its peak. "I'm the Demon King's own son," he said, "not one of those failures. Meet your death." He swung the blade down, and its shadow struck Shadow across the body, cutting a bottomless gash into the ground ahead. Shadow took real damage from that one blow. Valley's expression stayed dark. "Not bad, surviving one strike," he said. "I'll give you a chance. Become my mount, and as long as you don't interfere when I go kill that human, that's all I ask." Hearing it, Shadow's eyes filled with a fury he'd never shown before, glaring at Valley, and his roar shook heaven and earth. Black flame burst out across his body and expanded to several kilometers in a blink, swallowing everything in fire. A phantom of pure violence, over 2,000 meters tall this time, began to take shape, almost stone solid now, radiating a presence that made everything around it freeze in place, a force that consumed all it touched. Valley's expression grew heavy. His own life source was being drained. Shadow's eyes stayed cold on him. Without moving, he raised his claw and struck, the phantom mirroring the motion. Valley's face shifted and he poured everything into reinforcing his barrier, but it still couldn't hold against the terrifying black claw of flame, and he was slammed into the ground. His expression twisted in fury as he felt his life source being torn away, and a burst of terrifying power erupted from within him, but it only spread 10 meters before stalling out completely, which stunned him. Before he could react, the phantom's claw struck again, and Valley was thrown through the thick city wall, hundreds of meters. His body abruptly grew to dozens of meters, black patterns spreading across his skin, black bone wings unfurling to over 100 meters, and a long strand of black fur condensed in his grip. Dark current exploding around him. "Talent," he snarled. "Fallen demon body. Die for me." He vanished and reappeared with a crash amid the black flame, the sharp black fur driving in, but Shadow was faster still, the phantom's reach letting him swat Valley down like a fly, smashing him into a crater in the ground. Struggling back up, Valley ground his teeth. Born into malefic nobility, he'd never known humiliation like this. Count Bakumu, one of his father's own 6-ring nobles. "Get out here," he shouted. "What are you waiting for? Open the ceiling array." The order carried far, and a black sky shroud fell over the entire city like an overturned bowl. dozens of chains of corrupted dark power stretching out of the void to bind Shadow layer by layer, dark current crawling up along the chains as if trying to assimilate him. Seeing Shadow bound, Valley laughed in triumph. With tens of thousands of malefic powering it, even a six-ring couldn't break free. "Once you're mine," he said, "I'll make sure you suffer properly." At that, Shadow roared with fury, and his three fused talents, the flame, the ravenous devouring, and the death insect eyes, all surged at once. Black flame erupted and expanded a full kilometer, a terrifying deathwing spreading across the whole space. Within that black sea of fire, everything living would be defined as dead. Even an undying god could fall inside it. At the same time, the phantom around Shadow solidified fully into stone, its huge eyes splitting into a pair of gray insect eyes carrying that deathwing power, able to end a target with a single glance. Within his domain, he was master of all, heaven-refining Deathwing, Activate. The domain, formed from three fused talents, was terrifying beyond measure. Valley's earlier smile faded into raw fear. Trapped inside it, his life was being devoured by the black flame and steadily eroded by the Deathwing. "Damn it," he snarled. "Let's see who runs out first, you or me," and poured every last drop of dark power into the chains, the corrosion surging harder, trying to overwrite Shadow's flesh and spirit entirely. Shadow just roared and held firm, his resolve keeping the corruption at bay. He remembered it, once, abandoned by the wolf pack for the weakness of his mutated body, left in the cruel forest, hunger and cold nearly stealing his warmth for good, until his master's call had saved his life. From that moment, Shadow decided he would follow me forever. His fighting was never about a pact or a soul link. Existing at all had become a reason to fight for me. At the same instant, the phantom itself roared, and without any command from Shadow, the black-gray current wrapped around it shattered the chains outright, the giant claw tearing the binding apart. Then the phantom reached slowly for Valley, its gray eyes flat and indifferent, the deathwing beneath erupting. Valley felt overwhelming danger, his surroundings turning gray, his life being erased within seconds, until, at the last moment, a black power burst from within him and shattered the Deathwing. His face twisted. The protective power his father had left him was spent. He didn't dare stay any longer, turned and fled. Meanwhile, I had already reached the Grand Palace Square behind the city. I threw my rifle spear across hundreds of meters, and it tore through the air into the dense mass of tens of thousands of malefic, killing a huge swath instantly. The rest roared, and each unleashed their own dark power, a thick current forming into long chains that bound me. Countless streams of corruption surged along the chains toward me. I felt none of it, but in my mind, I heard Silver Butterfly's grief, and my expression darkened. Just as I was about to take the strain onto myself, a savage roar tore in from far off. Looking at the dozens of meters-long corpse it left behind, every malefic there froze in disbelief. Prince Valley is dead. Panic spread through them instantly. Shadow casually snapped the chains binding me, and I let out a breath, then looked at him, still wreathed in the Deathwing, and frowned. He couldn't use that death-devouring form again for a while. It wasn't something he could safely sustain yet. Sensing my concern, Shadow explained through thought. The Deathwing would fade on its own after some time. I nodded and started clearing the rest of the malefic from the palace. Once we'd finished with the palace and stepped back out into the square, the sky suddenly stirred, dark power gathering into a faint shape. Eventually a phantom hundreds of meters tall, formed entirely of corrupted power, solidified into something real. Features blurred, wearing dissonant armor, a wave of revulsion bursting outward as rings of black current spread in every direction. Even with Silver Butterfly's protection, I could feel the danger this time. A cruel laugh rolled out. Good, it's done. This phantom, formed from the power of tens of thousands of malefic, carried 6-ring strength and a trace of someone's true power behind it. Count Bakumu spoke with fury. "Boy, you killed our master. You'll pay for it with your life." I didn't answer, drew my paired blades from storage, and cast reinforcement and healing on Shadow ahead of time. With a roar, Shadow surged into his massive form, 1,000 meters tall, pressure matching the fallen phantoms without weakness. The three fused talents came together, heaven-refining suppression. The domain opened at once, black flame tinged with gold, carrying a crushing weight, and pushed the gray domain back instantly. Dozens of malefic went tense and retreated fast, unwilling to stay inside the black gold field. "How is this possible? His domain isn't what it was before," they said. Inside it, life source was being drained and power suppressed at the same time. This time, no phantom of violence formed over Shadow's head. Instead, countless gold-black patterns spread over his surface, radiating something almost divine, imperious, and absolute. A terrifying suppression pulsed outward, the air itself growing unbearably heavy, his roar carrying for miles. Under heaven-refining suppression, Shadow's body itself grew tougher, every strike now carrying that crushing force. The Malefic tensed further, poured their remaining dark power into the fallen phantom, and it stretched out another 100 meters, its two black wings spreading a full kilometer, its domain swelling and slamming against Shadow's heaven-refining field. The two utterly incompatible, gray and black gold shockwaves bursting outward in rings, spreading in every direction. The fight had risen to a level no one else could touch. Meanwhile, in a gray palace many worlds away, a humanoid figure in gray dissonant armor, seated on a throne within an ocean valley, snapped his black eyes open, a terrifying presence waking within him at once. Some malefic has used forbidden power. He calmed his mind and reached back through the connection, and a thread of his consciousness descended into the fallen phantom. At once the phantom's eyes lit with gray, no longer a mindless construct. The demon king himself, Norgal, had entered it. He looked at Shadow and marveled. This black wolf, without even evolving further, already had 6-ring strength, terrifying potential. Then, with a roar, Shadow broke straight through the gray domain, ignoring the corrosive power flooding in, his crushing claw wreathed in black light tearing down. Norgal's brow furrowed, and he pulled back a kilometer, trying to take to the sky. But Shadow held on, faster still, the crushing force making the phantom's body sink, and in that instant of opening, Shadow leapt and struck with both claws at once. Under the suppression, Norgal's body was slammed into the ground, a crater, a kilometer wide, collapsing beneath him with a deafening roar. Shadow closed in again immediately, and with the domain's reach extended by heaven-refining suppression, gave Norgal no room to pull away, tearing at him relentlessly, while both gray insect eyes unleashed their death power, grinding him down. Even though the fallen phantom wasn't truly alive, the death insect eyes gave it a definition of death all the same, no exceptions. Norgal's expression turned grave. All 4 fused talents were tearing at him steadily. The loss itself wasn't unbearable, but this wolf's potential was too great to ignore. If left alone, it wouldn't be long before humanity had another throne-level power standing in the way of the malefic invasion. Thinking that, Norgal stopped hesitating. All his corrupted power detonated at once, forcing Shadow back, and he shot skyward. Then endless corrupted power began pouring in from every direction. The malefic below realized in horror that their own power was being drained against their will, their bodies withering as they died. A strand of black fur over 1,000 meters long condensed in the air, its terrifying power shaking the air itself, rings of black current tearing outward. That wasn't all. The gray domain wrapped around Norgal kept shrinking, eventually folding entirely into the black fur strand. This was throne-tier control of domain, far beyond anything a lesser being could manage, able to expand into suppression or compress into a weapon, its power doubling either way. Norgal's gaze went flat and locked onto my position instantly. Shadow surged forward at once, his 1,000-meter body planting itself directly in front of me. "Die," Norgal said coldly, but the next moment he stopped short. The heaven-refining field wasn't expanding anymore. It was folding inward instead, compressing with a thunderous roar until it fused completely with Shadow's body. Black gold light flared, and an absolute crushing force burst outward, cracking the ground for kilometers, dozens of meters deep, turning countless rocks to dust. Furious, Norgal fired the 1,000-meter black fur directly, tearing the air like black lightning, reaching Shadow almost instantly. The strike carried force close to a 7-ring, but slowed by half under Shadow's suppression field. Shadow roared and caught the tip of it barehanded. The two forces collided and burst outward, the shockwave spreading for tens of thousands of meters. Black gold patterns flared wildly over Shadow, his defense and raw strength growing fiercer by the second, his position unmoved even as the ground beneath him kept caving in. Norgal poured everything into the black fur to sharpen it further, and after minutes of grinding against each other, cracks began forming and spreading through it. With a final roar, Shadow unleashed everything, body and domain, both, and the 1,000-meter fur shattered into countless black fragments. In the same instant, the fallen phantom, its power spent, dissolved into black mist. In his final moment, Norgal burned my face into memory before his consciousness withdrew back to the Grey Palace. Back on his throne, Norgal sat in silence, a presence like an abyss, pressing down on the attendant demon women around him until they trembled. He's only level 20, he thought, brow tight. How did he already compress a domain? That level of understanding and control was terrifying. Breaking into 10-ring throne tier normally required far more, and this black wolf had already reached it at level 20. What unsettled him more was that the wolf's domain wasn't just something layered over his body. It had fused with him completely, something only true kings above throne tier managed. Norgal let out a long breath, composed himself, pulled out a gray talisman, and recorded my information onto the malefic race's kill list. Every human prodigy with throne tier potential got marked this way, so any 6-ring or above could move to end them on sight. With that done, he settled back onto his throne and closed his eyes. Across the ravaged battlefield, Shadow stood at his full 1,000-meter height, black gold patterns still glowing across him with imperious light. I released the reinforcement and healing spells, my head swimming with exhaustion. Even with the Heaven Authority staff's mental recovery, sustaining those buffs had cost more than I could really afford. After a while, the prompt for the dungeon's end appeared, and the next moment, Shadow and I both vanished. Time was up. The results came in. Malefic killed in bulk. A 6-ring fallen phantom broken. 974 people saved. Congratulations. Evaluation. Perfect. Class growth stats +5. Skill reinforcement and healing effects enhanced. Skill summoning has advanced to sacred summoning. I reappeared in my dorm room, pulling Shadow back in time to keep the room from collapsing under him. Checking my panel, my class hadn't advanced yet. That would need one more perfect dungeon evaluation, but the skill gains were significant. Reinforcement's boost had gone from 20% to 35%, and healing had gone from a slow trickle to something fast, though mana cost had doubled for both. The biggest win was the summoning upgrade. From now on, whatever I summoned would carry a sacred nature. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of anticipation over that. I didn't summon anything right away. Instead, I checked the news out of Fanyun City on my phone and saw a report about several hundred rescued people appearing out of nowhere and let out a breath. The report said they were people from another world, enslaved by the Malefic, saved and transported to Southern Star by a rebirth-class fighter in silver armor. Officials said they'd be resettled properly. The photos showed people who'd been starved thin already looking a little better, probably from the blood fruit Zhou Yuan had given them. With the tension finally easing off, exhaustion caught up to me, and I fell asleep the moment I lay down. Sometime before dawn, Julian and the other two came back exhausted, saw me sleeping soundly, and dragged me up out of pure spite. It turned out the military had released the footage of me killing the 3-headed serpent, and the forum had exploded again. Once everyone realized I'd done it entirely on my own strength, people started grinding quests like mad trying to keep up, and it had shamed the 3 of them into giving up sleep entirely. Owen Cao mentioned that students at Beilong Academy had a strategy of running quests and rotating squads that was far more efficient than solo grinding, and that lit a fire under the other two. They gave up on eating and went straight to gathering their teammates for more quests. Seeing that, I smiled and got up to head to the quest counter myself. After going most of a day without doing any quests, my ranking had already slid from 10th back down past 2,000. After thinking it over, I took a quest to kill a level 59 dark gold leopard bear along with a 6th transformation quest and turned to leave, leaving behind a young soldier still waiting at her desk. That 6th transformation quest required killing a mutant with genuine intelligence, something even instructors hadn't managed yet. Command couldn't argue with the choice, though Commander Yang looked equal parts resigned and hopeful, and the drone assigned to track me kept following as always. An hour later, riding Shadow, I reached deep into the range and found the dark gold leopard bear in an open stretch of land. Its dark gold eyes snapped open, and its 600-meter frame rose, shaking the ground, its violent aura sweeping out as it roared to drive us off. I dropped quietly off Shadow's back and stepped away, leaving the fight to him. This thing was too far beyond me. I'd only be in the way. What mattered now was converting contribution points into metal materials for Silver Butterfly to fuse with. Once I'd retreated to a safe distance, Shadow turned, his cold gaze fixed on the bear, and his body surged rapidly to over 1,000 meters long, 650 meters at the shoulder, his violent pressure bursting out and rattling the bear's nerve. The female officer at command was stunned. In less than a day, he'd grown from a few hundred meters to over 1,000. Commander Yang looked just as shocked. An SSS tier growth talent like this had never appeared among humanity before. As the ground split open, Shadow surged forward, black flame bursting out, a 2,000-meter phantom of violence taking shape, its fire covering a 6-kilometer radius before pulling back into 2,000 to conserve strength. Fighting Norgal had sharpened his control over both domain and raw power considerably. The bear roared, sharp currents wrapping its body, its claws flashing gold. But against the phantom, it looked almost small, its 600 meters dwarfed. The black flame claw came down, and the bear raised a paw to meet it. Rings of black gold shockwave bursting out, the ground shaking. Its sharp current was consumed by the metal-infused flame, and under the mountain-like pressure, its legs began to buckle. It roared, muscles bulging, forcing out a stronger current. But the phantom shifted suddenly, and Shadow closed the gap and struck, his black-lit claw tearing 4 deep gashes to the bone. The bear screamed in agony as it felt the black flame eating its life through the wounds, its eyes turning savage as it threw itself into a desperate fight against Shadow. The ground turned red with its blood, all of it its own. With the phantom's help, it was effectively 2 against 1, and Shadow came through it untouched. Finally, the bear let out a roar toward the sky, its aura spiking, then turned and fled deep into the range, snapping trees in its path, dust rolling behind it. Shadow paused only a moment before giving chase.